Chapter 1. When the revolution comes, border guards won't get away with harassing harvester girls. But for now, it's just me and my poison darts. I lie on the branch of the ancient persimmon tree, aiming my blowpipe at the exposed skin between the guard's helmet and collar. The hair curling from beneath his helmet is the blue-black common to the nobles. His hand is wrapped around the harvester girl's arm, and he's pulling her to his solar pickup truck. Dry leaves rustling in the wind mingle with the rapid beat of my pulse. As I grip the pipe's barrel, my lips close around its mouthpiece, and I wish I'd brought the longer one I use for hunting jackrabbits. Accounting for the effects of the wind, it's going to take every ounce of concentration to hit my target. "Stay still," I whisper into the wind. "If that dart hits the girl..." Krim, the tomato supervisor, pushes his wheelbarrow off the path and heads toward the struggling pair, but the guard grips the butt of his rifle and hisses at the older man to get going. He ducks his head and hurries along. As he passes beneath my tree, his head tilts up. My gaze is too fixed on the guard to notice the expression, but I don't think he'll yell at me today for not tending to my plants. "One," I mumble around the mouthpiece. The guard clutches the girl to his chest and laughs. A palpitation reverberates through my chest, and my palms become slick. This won't be like the last time. 2. Dry air streams into my nostrils, fills my lungs, and expands my diaphragm. My ribcage pushes painfully against the rough bark of the branch. The girl places both hands on his chest and throws her weight back to break free of the guard's grip. He snatches her back and bends his head to plunder her mouth, exposing the reddened skin of his neck. I release the air from my lungs and channel my resentment in a sharp exhale. The dart flies through the air and lands between the 3rd and 4th notches of his cervical spine. I clench my teeth, waiting for the mandragonberries to do their work. The guard flinches. His hand flies up to touch the feathered porcupine quill. He spins, yanking the dart, looking for me. I lie still, hoping the poison has blurred his vision enough to mistake the beige of my skirt for tree bark. He stumbles toward the girl, who skitters back onto the path and ducks beneath the low canopy of the tomato trees. He falls forward with a heavy thud, and clouds of dust and leaf litter explode into the air. Elation surges through my veins, and I drop from the tree to the applause of the other harvesters. On days like this, the revolution feels like it could really happen. I slip my blowpipe and quiver into the deep pockets of my skirt and walk back to weed among the tomato trees. By the time Lieutenant Lecherous wakes up, it will be sunset, and he'll suffer the mockery of his fellow guards. But there's one harvester girl saved. For now. The tomato trees have trunks as narrow as my forearm, which split at 5.5 feet into long branches that stretch horizontally to form a canopy thick enough to block the afternoon sun. Ripe fruit dangles from the stalks, and cool, sweet air sweeps beneath this haven from the dry heat. My jute espadrilles scrape on the sandstone pathways, and I long to sink my feet into the damp black soil. A tall girl with straw-colored braids nods, acknowledging my heroic act, and I nod back. Only one thing would be better than saving a fellow harvester girl, and that would be doing it under the approving gaze of Rice Wintergreen. "Zia May's calico?" Krim's voice lands in my ears with the weight of a boulder. My shoulders stiffen, and I turn around. The tomato supervisor is in his mid-30s, like Dad, but the sun has dried his skin to the consistency of leather. It's darker than his beige shirt and neckerchief, and his black eyes burn with fury. "Yes, sir," I reply. He gestures behind us. "What have you done?" I step back and bump into a wheelbarrow laden with beefsteak tomatoes. The question is annoying, considering he failed to save the girl. "That guard was attacking. I didn't ask for the whys." He bares blunt, white teeth. "How in the name of Gaia will I explain his condition to his superiors?" Apprehension prickles my skin, and I glance around the tomato field. The other harvesters pause to watch, their eyes wide with fear. My gaze darts back to the fallen border guard, who still lies face down at the foot of the persimmon tree. I swallow hard. Mandragon mimics the venom of a Jimson wasp. Crim's lips tighten, and I already know what he's thinking. Jimson wasps swarm in thousands. They will ask why only the guard got stung. If they're not satisfied with his answer, that will be the end of Crim. He blows out a long, weary breath. Mancoon, Cortland, Farrell, come here. Twin girls step forward, along with the girl I rescued from the guard's attack. They all keep their gazes to the sandstone path. Crim turns to me, his expression grim. You're going to sting each of them with your poison darts. My mouth drops open. But how else can I cover up your impulsive act? He snarls. Any remaining triumph I felt now drains, and my shoulders slump with defeat. The girl I saved steps forward. Her short apron indicates that she's also an apprentice, but the faded tomato stains on the fabric tells me she's been on the job at least a year. Without looking me in the eye, she holds out her arm. Ignoring the rise of bile to the back of my throat, I reach into the pocket of my skirt, pull out a dart, and give the girl's arm the barest prick. She blinks once, twice, and falls back. One of the twins catches her before she hits the crops, and they carry her to the persimmon tree. Now it will look like they both got stung. When the twins return, we walk to the edge of the tomato field, and I have to sting them too. They remain conscious for long enough to position themselves in the shade, and Crim strides to the fallen guard and plucks the dart from his neck. I chew on the inside of my cheek, hoping the girls will stay unconscious for long enough to corroborate Crim's cover-up. A moment later, he returns with the dart and presses it into my hand. I'll report the sighting of Jimson scouts. He glances around at the other harvesters. Everyone was too busy weeding and picking tomatoes to notice what happened by the tree. Is that understood? Mutters of agreement spread out from the tomato trees, and relief washes through my veins like rain. Crim's plan might work. As we walk toward the persimmon tree, he says, Go home. But the next squadron will arrive soon enough. He squints up at the sky. When they take the register, I'll explain that I sent you home with sunstroke. A common ailment for a careless apprentice. Home is a 2-mile walk through the cornfield Dad supervises. Giant stalks loom at my sides like sentinels, their leaves rustling in the breeze. The milky, sweet scent of ripe kernels teases my sinuses, and saliva trickles into my mouth. Swallowing hard, I dip my head and pull down the brim of my bonnet, so no one recognizes me as I walk home in disgrace. The sun beats down on my back like an admonishing parent, and for the next half hour, Crim's voice rings in my ears. Maybe there was a better way to handle the situation, but if I had let that guard drag away Farrell, I shake my head. I can't dwell on old memories. I can't keep punishing myself for those I couldn't save. Along the dirt track, I pass a few harvesters, their heads bowed with the weight of drudgery. Dust blends with the beige and browns of their clothing, and many of them carry gourds of water. I rub my throat and gulp. Water, not food, is the currency in our echelon. Echelons are levels of society that define a person's caste, social status, access to resources, and freedom. Harvesters are at the bottom of Fangloria's echelon system, even though we're the ones who grow the food and tend to the livestock. Fangloria is the largest country in the continent of North America, separated from the desert by the Great Wall. Harvesters live in a dry region, closer to the outskirts, and miles away from the oasis, the country's only source of water. My tongue darts out to moisten my dry lips. With more water, harvesters won't feel so beaten down. More water also means we can grow more food at home, and on our windowsills. I fan myself, but the effort is futile. At the end of the cornfield, dust drifts off a 100-foot-long stretch of parched earth that marks the beginning of Rugosa, a mishmash of pale houses built from the earth and arranged around a public square. Rugosa isn't a city like the Oasis, and the word village would imply that we have a community. We don't. Toil and hunger and thirst keeps us too weary to do anything but surviving and biding our time for the revolution. My foot catches on a deep crack in the earth, and the ear-piercing shriek of a royal raptor overhead reminds me of the dangers of standing still for too long in the sun. Shuddering, I quicken my pace and try not to think of why such a dangerous bird of prey has escaped the notice of the Great Wall's riflemen. Like most harvesters, we live in an earth house. It's white, with curved walls, and a huge roof sloped to catch every drop of water during the rainy season. At the window, Flint and Yosef wave and jump up and down. Squinting up at the cloudless sky for signs of the royal raptor, I wave back at my little brothers. As I step into the shade of the veranda, Mom opens the door and steps aside. "What did you do?" I enter the welcoming cool of the house and mutter, "Krim sent me home with sunstroke." Her brows rise. I'm not the best of liars, but Mom knows my mannerisms well enough to tell that I'm hiding something. The twins rush out from the family room and wrap their arms around my waist. They're 5, identical, with the same front tooth missing on the bottom left. Flint pats down my pocket for tomatoes, and Yosef pulls out a poisoned dart. "Careful." I wrap my hand around Yosef's wrist. "Don't touch." "Did you bring us something from work?" asks Yosef, his hazel eyes dancing with excitement. I ruffle his hair. "How about a story before bedtime?" "Now!" Flint grabs my arm and jumps. Mom ushers them back into the family room, which doubles as a classroom during the day. "You took your blowgun to the tomato field?" With a sigh, I follow her into the kitchen. It's a space as large as the family room, with wall-width windows and raised beds running along both sides of the back door. It's where we grow food from all the spoiled fruit we're allowed to keep. Because of her childhood, Mom's the blowgun expert. She taught me how to use it when I was little, saying it was a useful skill to have during lean times. Now I can tell she regrets introducing me to the weapon. While Mom tends to the pile of dragon fruit on the kitchen counter, I sit at the bed's low wall and give her the highlights about the guard. Throughout my tale, she scoops white, speckled flesh from the cerise-colored fruit with increasingly jerky movements. She asks, "Was there a camera on his helmet?" My brow furrows. "No. How can you be sure?" Mom slams her spoon on the counter. "He wouldn't have wanted his superiors seeing what he'd come to do." Mom's hand claps over her mouth and she stares at me with wide, glistening eyes. "He was dragging her to his Jeep." I snatch my gaze away from Mom's. That's the look she used to give me when I would scream awake from nightmares of the other time. The other time, I hid in a tree while a different guard assaulted a harvester girl. My throat thickens, and I let my shoulders droop. My dart hit him before the girl got hurt. "Zia," she says, her voice soft. "It's fine." I stand and turn to the glass door that leads to our yard. "You're 16, Mom says to my back. "They won't just whip you." "I know." "Zia!" Her voice sharpens. I turn around and meet Mom's worried aquamarine eyes. They're a shade lighter than mine, and it's the only physical trait that we have in common. Where Mom is short and curvy for a harvester woman, I'm all angles and elbows with dark brown hair. She clasps her hands over the full-length white apron that covers her beige dress and over the long blonde braids that frame her delicate features. My heart softens. I wish I could tell her that we're the ones that will cause the guards to worry. "I'll stay low until Carolina—" "Are you still associating with that lunatic?" I flinch. "Mom?" She rounds the counter, advancing on me with her eyes blazing. "The Guardians block every uprising before they even start and execute the ringleaders. I don't see Carolina or her associates risking themselves to save the virtue of harvester girls. Why should you? I press my lips together to suppress a rant. In Ragosa, words have a way of reaching the wrong ears and getting innocent people detained. Mom disagrees because she spent her childhood in the Barrens, the buffer between the desert and our echelon. The people who live there are foundlings who survived the wilderness and approached the Great Wall. They remain in the Barrens for decades, generations sometimes, until they prove themselves genetically fit to join Fangloria. We should all be grateful, Mom always says. She doesn't mind that the harvesters work in harsh conditions to grow food for the other echelons. According to her, it's better to live at the bottom of an ordered society than in the dry wilderness. An exasperated breath slips from my lips. It's not like, if you want to change Fangloria, join the princess trials. She balls her hands into fists. At least, then, you'll have the opportunity to become the queen and make some changes. I step back, a laugh huffing from my chest. The Princess Trials is a centuries-old tradition where the king and queen of Fangloria invite girls from every echelon to compete to marry the crown prince. All the girls in the tomato fields won't stop talking about the handsome Prince Kevin and their big chance to visit the palace. I can't believe anyone would subject themselves to such scrutiny, particularly because no prince has ever chosen a harvester to be his bride. That beauty pageant? I say. Why not? Mom raises her chin and levels me with her stare. You're healthy, beautiful, and full of ideas. Time at the oasis with the future king might make him and the nobles more sympathetic to your cause. I turn away from her determined gaze. When I go to the oasis, it will be with the Red Runners. We'll defeat the Guardians with our armory, tear King Arius off his throne, and make water available for everyone. Why would I want a pampered prince when I could have a revolution? That's not going to happen, I say. Is this about Rice Wintergreen? Her voice is sharp with accusation. Rice Wintergreen is Carolina's son, and an 18-year-old revolutionary who leads our cell of the Red Runners, a secret group of like-minded people who will one day overthrow the entire echelon system. Everybody in Fangloria belongs to an echelon. The royals are descendants of the country's founders and consist of the king, queen, and the prince. Next are the nobles, which include minor royals, distant royals, and families that were in Fangloria from the beginning. The Guardians mostly consist of the soldiers who protect Fangloria and enforce the law, and the artisans are the creatives. The last two echelons are the most numerous but have the least power. The industrials, who work in manufacturing, and the harvesters, who grow all the food and tend to the livestock. Foundlings aren't considered part of Fangloria until they pass a series of rigorous tests when old enough to contribute to our society. Even though I've known Rice Wintergreen for years, and he's personally trained me in hand-to-hand combat and basic gun and knife skills, he has only ever shown me professional interest. I open the back door, letting in a rush of hot, dry air. Rice is just a friend. Before Mom can say anything else about Rice or Carolina, I close the door and hurry through the maze of tall cacti that fills the backyard. A human-sounding screech carries in the breeze, and warmth fills my chest. I pluck a few purple berries from a round cactus and hurry to a group of thorny succulents with arms that trail down to the dusty ground. I kneel before a 3-foot-tall barrel cactus and stare into the black eyes of my friend. Sharky. Sharky looks like a kakapo, an owl-faced parrot with moss and lime-green feathers. She's the size of a large cat, with oversized claws that curl like fingers. Unlike kakapo, Sharky can fly. An ornithologist at the oasis might be able to classify her exact species. As I sprinkle the berries on the ground, she opens her curved beak and squawks her thanks. "How are the chicks?" I murmur. From deep within the taller plants, 3 young birds emerge from behind another barrel cactus. They stand nearly as tall as their mother, but with crested head feathers and beaks as sharp as blades. From the looks of them, they're probably more suited to chunks of raw meat than to berries. I sit in the shade with the birds for what feels like hours and take a few fruits for myself. They're warmer than I'd like, but an appreciated source of liquid. "Zia?" asks an unfamiliar voice. Pharrell, the red-haired girl from the tomato field, stands over me. I shield my eyes with my hand and squint. "How did you get here so quickly?" She grins. "The guards woke me with a shot. After I gave my statement, Krim brought me here on his mule." Pharrell kneels at my side and makes kissing sounds at Sharky. "He said I could find you here." "How's that guard doing?" I ask. She rubs her brow. "He's still unconscious. I hope he gets a headache when he wakes." I snort. "Trust me, he'll have the worst hangover." "Tell me about it," she says with a laugh. My smile fades as I remember stabbing her with my poisoned dart. "Are you all right?" "I'm not complaining. You only gave me a tiny prick of poison." Her hands shoot up. "I came to thank you for coming to my aid. That guard wouldn't have stopped." "Yeah." My head dips, and old memories push themselves to the forefront of my mind. I'm up a tree, watching another harvester girl struggle in the grip of a similar guard, except I'm too paralyzed with fear to pull out my blowpipe. Pharrell places a hand on my arm. "You risked execution for me." Sharky gobbles a berry, splattering purple juice over her beak. I shake my head and smile, because the Red Runners wouldn't let me get hurt. If one of their members got arrested for protecting a harvester, it would incite a riot that would wipe out every guard that dared to tie a noose around my neck. "It would never have come to that," I murmur. She sucks in a breath, sounding like she wants to disagree. Maybe Pharrell is like Mom and fears the might of the Guardians. But Rice told me the revolution would happen soon. He has seen the cache of weapons, and there are enough guns to storm the oasis and free every harvester from a life of servitude. Pharrell licks her lips. "If you hadn't saved me today, I wouldn't have qualified for the princess trials." I turn away from Sharky and examine my new companion. She's about my height, 5'8", with smiling gray eyes set within a heart-shaped face, and rosy cheeks and lips that don't need coloring. I can see why a girl like her could compete with the higher echelons for the chance to marry Prince Kevon. One evening at the Assembly Hall, a documentary played on the Oasis Vision screen of pre-Raphaelite paintings from the ancient society that was once Italy. Ignoring the beige dress, matching bonnet, and tomato-stained apron, Pharrell could have modeled for one of those artists. She continues staring at me, and my mind snaps to the present. I mutter, "It's not safe around those nobles." Her face breaks out into a grin. "But it would be nice to get out of Ragosa and stay in the palace, swim in a pool of water, and eat at all those banquets. Besides, the pageant is televised, and nothing untoward will happen on the big screen." My lips twitch, and I can't help but return her smile. Pharrell's optimism reminds me of Mom. "And what about the handsome prince?" "It's not like I have a chance." She raises a shoulder. "There'll be opportunities at the oasis we can't find here." "Zia?" asks a familiar male voice from behind. My heart turns a somersault in my chest, and I tilt my head up. Standing among the cacti is Rice Wintergreen, captain of the Red Runners, and the object of my deepest desire. His pale blue eyes burn with determination, and his features are grave. I've never seen Rice so much as quirk the corners of his lips. One day, I'll be the one who makes Rice smile. "I heard you took out a border guard." Rice's gaze is assessing, as though he's looking at me for the first time. His voice touches all corners of my heart, and heat rises to my cheeks. "She was amazing," says Pharrell, her voice full of enthusiastic cheer. "I'm beginning to appreciate Zia's talents," Rice says, not sparing her the slightest glance. His eyes bore into mine with an intensity that turns my insides to mush. "Will you excuse us for a moment, please?" Zia and I have urgent business. Chapter 2. Pharrell stands and disappears behind a cactus, leaving me kneeling in the dirt and staring into the eyes of Rice Wintergreen. He looms above me, and sunlight shines through his chocolate-brown hair, turning its ends as red as the burnt sienna Mom uses to make paints. For a moment it looks like a halo, and the little moisture in my throat evaporates. Rice offers me his hand. "Good work, soldier." My heart soars, and I let him pull me to my feet. Rice's sweet, earthy scent fills my nostrils, reminding me of sugar beet. We stand so close that his breath fans across my face. Rice and I share a terrible history, a shared tragedy that has blighted my soul. 7 years ago, I witnessed the murder of Rice's father. Afterward, Dad brought me over to the Wintergreen house to tell him and Carolina what I saw. Rice had been 11, angry, and full of accusations. If I had been up the tree, why hadn't I shot at the guard with my poisoned darts? Dad and Carolina had stepped between us, but Rice had been right. I had let the guard attack that harvester girl and hadn't done anything to help Mr. Wintergreen when he had intervened and gotten himself beaten to death. He steps back and pulls a small bottle gourd from his pocket. "I brought you something." My lips part. "What?" "Krim sent you home without rations." He shakes the gourd, sloshing its contents. "Have mine." "But what you did today was outstanding. Heroic acts need to be rewarded, not punished. The revolution depends on brave soldiers." Rice pauses and seems to look into my soul. "Like you." My throat dries, and butterflies thrash their wings against the lining of my stomach, urging me to accept his gift. Rice's gaze turns expectant. "Thanks." I take the gourd, pop its cork, and place its opening to my lips. Cool, sweet bliss slides down my throat and moistens my parched mucous membranes. My chest vibrates with an appreciative moan. Water, after a hot day in the sun, is sweeter than chocolate, sweeter than the ripest fruit. But nothing is sweeter than Rice Wintergreen watching me drink. I pull the gourd from my lips and gulp. "Here, you have some." He takes the water and sips. "I heard that the guard was still unconscious when they carried him away. What did you use?" "Mandragon berries," I reply. "Deadly?" He raises a brow. I shake my head. Apothecaries use them in sleeping draughts, but the darkest berries at the top of the tree are the most potent. Nobody buys them because of their unpredictable effects. He nods, seeming to understand. Dad's the expert on medicinal plants. When he's not working, he's gathering herbs or tending to his micro-gardens in shaded spots around Ragosa. He maintains them with wastewater he collects from our house and from neighbors who he pays with produce. I still go out with Dad, tend to plants and gather herbs that grow wild in fields and around ancient trees. But it was Mom who taught me to use the blowgun. In the Barrens, hunting was the only way to survive. Rice finishes his drink and asks, "May I see your weapon?" I pull my blowgun from the deep pocket of my skirt. It's 12 inches, made of bamboo, and the smallest in my collection. I hand it to Rice, who weighs it in his hand with his brows raised. Sometimes, it's hard to believe that something that looks like a drinking straw can kill. Before I can show him my quiver and poisoned darts, a desert runner swoops down from the sky. Rice beckons for it to come close. The bird lands, curling its talons around his forearm. Desert runners are reddish-brown birds, with long muscular legs that make excellent meat. They hunt with beaks as sharp as daggers and can run faster than a solar jeep. The red runners raise them from eggs and train them to pass messages. This desert runner has a red talon, which is a summons to headquarters. Rice raises his brow. Mother probably wants to congratulate you herself. After I wave goodbye to Sharky and her chicks, Rice and I walk to the furthest end of the yard, where the cacti stand only knee-high. I've never been to the headquarters of the Red Runners, and my heart beats twice as fast as our hurried steps. The sun burns bright in the cloudless sky. In a few hours it will set, and the wind will cool. We pass through the narrow patch of land that separates our garden from the Brayburns, neighbors who supply Dad with wastewater. "Could you teach me to use the blowpipe?" Rice asks in a low voice. "A weapon like that could be vital for stealth missions." Curiosity burns through my insides. I had never thought of the Red Runners infiltrating enemy territory to perform covert operations. I conjure up images of old movies played on Oasis Vision, relics from the world before bombs and drought and ecological disasters. As we step onto the dirt road that winds around the outskirts of Ragosa, I whisper, "What kinds of missions?" Rice raises a brow, and I place my fingers over my lips. I know better than to ask that kind of question out in public. A stagecoach trundles past, pulled by a pair of giant pronghorns. They're 7-foot-tall antelopes covered in brown and beige zebra stripes and grow 2-pronged horns on kangaroo-like faces. Pronghorns can outrun everything from desert runners to horses. At the back of the stagecoach sit 24 dirt-covered harvester men who reek of manure. They are soil builders who prepare the desert for crops. It's smelly, back-breaking drudgery, and the more arable land they create, the more Fangloria expands. I give Rice an apologetic shrug for asking such a delicate question outside. Even when nobody seems to pay attention, someone is always listening. Rice takes my hand as we cross the stretch of dirt track that leads to the cornfield. "Do you trust me?" "Yes. Why?" "You're not to mention what you see to anyone. Is that understood?" I nod, and we continue through the expanse of corn. The lines of stalks stretch on forever, a lush forest green with a smattering of golden corn silk, and their tall leaves form a shady canopy. We continue in silence through the field, and my pulse thuds with the promise of adventure. Hundreds of feet ahead stands a baobab tree, with a trunk thick enough to fill the entire house. Dark limbs protrude from its crown-like tentacles, which twist and split into branches and the thinnest twigs. That baobab tree has been struck by lightning so many times that the earth around it has turned barren. "Don't be alarmed." Rice lets go of my hand, approaches the tree, slips into its hollow, and disappears. "Rice?" I try to keep the tremble from my voice. He doesn't answer, and I squeeze my eyes shut and blow out a long breath through my nostrils. This is a test. Rice probably wants to judge my worth, to see if I can be trusted with a stealth mission. Wiping my damp palms on the sides of my skirt, I glance over my shoulder and follow him inside. Darkness engulfs my senses, and an electrical charge makes my skin tingle. The fine hairs on my body stand on end, and I suck in a shocked breath. It's so quiet inside the tree that the thud of my pulse becomes deafening. One foot stumbles after the other, and I fall forward, only to land in strong arms. "Careful." Rice wraps an arm around my back. "I should have warned you about the uneven floor." My nose grazes his neck, and I can almost taste the salt on his skin. Heat flares across my cheeks, and my throat dries. Right now, I'm glad there's no source of light in the tree. "What is this place?" I whisper. "The entrance to the Red Runner headquarters." Rice takes my hand, and every knot of tension that has formed on my muscles unwinds. He guides me a few feet forward, then down a ladder and down an underground hallway, warning me that the passage is fraught with traps. I stay close for safety, but his steady presence at my side is intoxicating. I'm not sure if we're traveling away from Ragosa or toward it, but eventually, lights flood the passageway, making me blink. Rice places a hand on a door screen that scans his print. The technology is alarmingly similar to the ignition used in solar jeeps. "She's waiting for you in here." The door clicks open. A whir of fans fills my ears, and the scent of stale coffee invades my nostrils. Rice steps into what I can only describe as a monitoring station, a hexagonal room with 2 massive screens on each wall, displaying footage from all 16 towns within the Harvester region. 6 people wearing black clothes sit in the middle of the room at workstations that contain 4 monitors. My gaze lands on the screen flashing images from Ragosa Square, our street, and the cornfields, and of a truck arriving into our town. The young man observing them raises his head, and his entire lower jaw appears missing. Shock flashes through my insides like lightning, and I clamp my lips together to hold back a gasp. Swallowing hard, I blank my reaction. What is a foundling doing in the Harvester region? I'm not complaining, I'm not. But the Guardians would never let someone who looked like him into Fangloria. My throat dries, and I drop my gaze to the ground. There's a special group of Guardians called midwives that don't help women give birth. They assess babies' viability based on a range of unexplained tests and criteria. 3 years ago, a young Harvester woman with a healthy child birthed a baby that required 2 midwife visits. Nobody knows what was wrong with the baby, but the entire family disappeared overnight. Zia Mays Calico. Carolina steps out from a doorway on my right. Her features have hardened over the years. The unfairness of having a husband brutally killed and his murder dismissed can do that to a person. As usual, guilt tightens my chest at the sight of Carolina. I hadn't seen the guard's face. I hadn't been able to identify the monster who had slammed the butt of his rifle into Mr. Wintergreen's head until it split open like a watermelon. Because I had been paralyzed with terror, there had been no justice. Carolina places her hands on her hips, and her assessing gaze roves my form. What did you do to that guard this afternoon? Out of the corner of my eye, I see the people watching the monitors turn, but my gaze fixes on Carolina. Pride straightens my posture, pulls my shoulders back, and lightens my chest. I'm about to answer when Rice rushes forward and tells his mother about the mandragon berries. My insides deflate a little at losing my chance to shine in front of the Red Runner's leader, but it makes my heart swell that Rice has listened so carefully to my account of today's events. Carolina nods throughout Rice's explanation, and I step back and watch. She paces up and down the room, firing questions at him and seeming more like a general than a mother. It's a stark contrast to how they interact in public. In Red Runner meetings, Carolina is our fearless leader, the aggrieved widow. She wants to free Fangloria for the benefit of the Harvesters, the foundlings, and those downtrodden by the nobles. She always pauses to smile at Rice, which softens the sharp edges to her personality. But today, she's all business. Finally, she turns to me, flicks her head to a doorway, and strides in its direction. Walk with me. I glance at Rice, who sweeps his arm out in a gesture for me to follow his mother. Carolina disappears into another hexagonal room, which is larger than the floor space of my entire house. Floor-to-ceiling racks line the walls, each laden with rifles, handguns, grenades, and metallic disc-like weapons I can't begin to describe. My mouth drops open. Where did you get these? Carolina doesn't answer, but stands with her hands behind her back and rocks forward on her heels. My shoulders deflate at the obvious question. Most of the Red Runners already know that this armory is the culmination of over half a century of pilfering weapons. My gaze fixes on a short-barreled machine gun positioned lengthwise mounted along one wall. With thick 12-inch-long magazines, it looks nothing like border guard rifles. I want to ask Carolina how she obtained such sophisticated firearms, but she wouldn't answer. We have enough weapons here and in our other stores to arm 1,000 harvesters, she says. I suck in a breath through my teeth and nod, flattered that Carolina has brought me into her confidence. It's hard to picture so many armed rebels, but there are easily that many people in Ragosa Square every day. Can the revolution happen soon? I ask. Rice stands at my side and places a hand on my arm. The strobe light harshens his earnest features. There are 50,000 guardians in Fangloria, and 5,000 of them operate within the oasis. My spirits deflate. It would take an eternity for any kind of revolution that doesn't result in massive harvester deaths. I bite down on my lip and glance at Rice. Despite the pessimistic numbers he just presented, his eyes dance with excitement. Why? I glance at Carolina, who stares at me with the same eager expression as her son. My heart skips. What I did today with my poisoned dart has given them some kind of hope. Camel reed grows in the water filtration plants and around the expanse of dry lands separating rugosa from the barrens, as does bamboo. They're both types of grasses with hollow stems and are plentiful. Plentiful enough to equip thousands of harvesters with blowguns. Hope thrums through my insides, and I clear my throat. Do you want me to make... Carolina raises a finger, making my mouth click shut. 200 guard the palace. She steps back, and a cool smile crosses her features. It's the barest curve of the lips without an ounce of mirth or warmth, but her breathing quickens, and her blue eyes become manic. What is she talking about? I drop my gaze to the thickest machine gun on the wall, whose scope looks long enough to shoot a person from 1,000 feet. Rice's large hand slides around my waist, and it takes every ounce of self-control not to fall into a gibbering heap. His warmth seeps through the fabric of my dress, and his earthy scent fills my nostrils, making my heart pound so hard that its reverberations reach my fingertips. I squeeze my eyes shut and focus on the situation. This isn't real. If Rice Wintergreen wanted to make a move on me, he wouldn't do it in front of his mother. 1,000 armed rebels could subdue 200 palace guards. But Carolina's suggestion is flawed. Even if we traveled through Fangloria undetected, we would never get through the palace gates. Nobody gets to enter that building unless they're royals, ambassadors from other kingdoms, or nobles, or... My head snaps up. The princess trials. Rice steps away with an approving nod. I told you Zia would be perfect for this mission. Me? I slap my hand to my chest. Why not? Rice walks around me in a circle. You're pretty enough to reach the finals, committed enough to find a hidden passageway into the palace, brave enough to lead the revolution. A spy mission? My voice shakes. Carolina nods. You're the only harvester girl in the age bracket we can trust. A sharp breath whistles through my teeth. All these years, I thought myself an anonymous foot soldier. Carolina and Rice barely acknowledged me after I had failed to identify Mr. Wintergreen's murderer. No matter how hard I trained in Rice's youth cell, I felt beneath their notice. Rice stops circling and places both hands on my shoulders. You've grown from a frightened girl to a warrior brave enough to risk her life to save another. Carolina stands at his side and dabs a knuckle at the corner of her eye. Just like my Sylvester. The reminder of Mr. Wintergreen makes my heart still. For a moment, I'm that quaking little girl who stepped into Carolina's kitchen to share the terrible news. Dad held onto my shoulders to keep me from falling into a sobbing heap as I spluttered out the words. Seeing Carolina howl with grief had nearly been as bad as witnessing the guards' attack on poor Mr. Wintergreen. You can do this. Rice squeezes my shoulders. His words snap me into the present, and I'm lost in his eyes. They're the same color as mine, but on the opposite spectrum of blue. Pale as the horizon, with flecks of white, reminding me of the sky before the rainy season. His pupils contract, and his hand lands on my shoulder, slides up my neck, and cups my face. My pulse flutters in my throat in time with the butterflies in my stomach. Rice Wintergreen has never looked at me like this, as though I'm the answer to a longing deep within his heart. When you lead us into the revolution, harvesters like us will be free to choose more than one path. His gaze drops to my lips. I've never courted a girl. Do you know why? Every instinct tells me that his interest in me is moving too quickly. Mom would warn me that this was just a ploy to get me to agree to something reckless. Despite this, I find myself whispering, "Why?" Fangloria is no place for a harvester to start a family, he says. I won't condemn a child to a life of hunger and hard labor. His words stir up the well of dissatisfaction in my heart. It no longer matters if Rice Wintergreen is faking an interest to get me to perform a mission. I'm a harvester, and a Red Runner committed to the revolution. This might be our one chance to smash the oppressive echelon system. I break eye contact. What do you want me to do? Rice steps away, and Carolina's harsh features fill my vision. The strobe light turns the blue in her eyes white. Infiltrate the palace, find the hidden entrances, and don't fall in love with the handsome prince. Chapter 3. Carolina and Rice stare at me, their postures taut and their eyes bright with expectation. The racks of weapons gleam under the strobe light, and I can now picture them in the arms of brave rebels. Of all the harvester girls in the kingdom, the leaders of the Red Runners have chosen me to open the gates to the revolution. My lungs fill with deep, satisfied breaths, and I bask in their attention. This is the proudest moment in all my 16 years. If I succeed in this mission, it will erase the cowardice that taints my soul. It will be for Mr. Wintergreen, for all the harvester girls who have ever suffered at the hands of a guard, for those foundlings who survive in shanties by the Great Wall because they're not deemed genetically fit to live in Fangloria. Mom will be surprised when she discovers that I've taken her advice. One girl can make a difference, and that girl is going to be me. Raising my chin, I say, I'll do it. Carolina wraps me into a hug. Her arms are wiry, her chest bony, and she squeezes as tight as rope. Your name will be remembered in the new democracy. As we draw away, my gaze meets Rice's. One corner of his lips rise, and he gives me an approving nod. I'll take care of your kakapo. Sharky, I blurt. His eyes soften. I'll make sure Sharky and her chicks have everything they need while you're in the palace. A siren blares before I can thank him. It's an early roll call, ordering every able-bodied person in town to Ragosa Square. Rice wraps a hand around my forearm. Come with me. We rush through a door that leads into another darkened hallway, and I stumble blindly at his side. Where are we going? I asked. This region is filled with underground caverns. Did you know that? He asks. No. My family has been in Ragosa for 5 generations, but it was my great-grandfather who discovered a network of tunnels under the town. He thought their purpose was for removing excess water from the streets. I can't picture that much rain ever falling. It's hard to imagine that the Mississippi River ran through this place centuries ago. As we hurry down a maze of dark passages, Rice explains that the discovery of these tunnels was what started the Red Runners. His great-grandfather had confided in a fellow soil builder about his find, who told another harvester, who told someone else. Eventually, word reached the guards, who took everyone who even suspected the tunnel's existence to the oasis. Rice stops and places my hands on a wooden ladder. We climb up in the dark, and he explains that an urn of ashes one day appeared outside his great-grandmother's house. It had been a warning to everyone else never to venture into the tunnels. At the top of the ladder, he reaches past me and pushes at something in the ceiling. It gives way, and light and a musty scent floods the ladder, making me squint. I stare up at the wooden roof of an outhouse. To the left of my head sits an earthenware chamber pot. I turn around, and Rice gives me an encouraging nod. The outhouse is in the backyard, containing dwarf date palms with oversized fruit bunches that hang from thick stalks. I blow out a breath through my teeth. The soil where we live is only suitable for growing cacti. This way. He places his hand on the small of my back, and for a moment, it feels like we've been together forever. The sun is an incandescent ball of light, half obscured by the horizon, and the oppressive heat of the day fades to a gentle warmth. Mingled scents of pomegranates and pears and persimmons carry in the breeze, which sweeps dark strands of hair off my face. We step out from the garden and join a road of houses made of mud bricks. The white rendering has faded to brown over the years, but these homes are much older than ours and closer to Ragosa Square. Whole families of harvesters pile out of their houses toward the stairs. The nobles encourage us, with extra water rations, to marry early and reproduce, but very few households contain more than 3 children. What do you think this roll call is about? I ask. The trials? Undoubtedly. Rice pauses for a field manager on horseback, who wears a white shirt with his beige pants. Pink patches appear on the older man's cheeks through his peeling brown skin. He tips the brim of his straw hat at Rice, who offers back an acknowledging nod. The square is one of the few paved areas within Ragosa. It's a vast space that can accommodate all 7,000 of us, with floodlights on the surrounding streets that also contain speakers. There are no stores or boutiques in Ragosa, except for a huge geodesic dome. One half consists of triangular panels that give a clear view of the Oasis vision screen. The other half is a white polymer that both protects from the sun and projects the screen on its exterior. That way, everyone in Ragosa gets a chance to watch important announcements, even when the dome is full. Harvesters spill into the streets, a mass of beiges and browns and burnt umber. The dome doors are closed with at least 1,000 people crowding around its front and back. As we cross the street, our steps falter. Not at the crowd, but at a marquee that stands at its side with guards flanking its closed doors. Even more alarming are the 8 black trucks parked on that side of the square. There's no mistaking who or what they contain. Anxiety clutches at my insides. The last time the guards erected a marquee, it was to round up the participants of an illicit distillery. No one has seen those harvester men and women in the 2 years since they were taken. Do you know what that structure is about? I whisper. Rice shakes his head and guides me to the furthest end of the square in view of the screen. By now, the last vestiges of sunlight filter through the distant haze, turning the sky the color of freshly spilled blood. Dozens of guards step out of their vehicles, each clad in black armor and each carrying automatic rifles. I edge closer to Rice, hoping that they're here to supervise the harvester portion of the princess trials. The national anthem blares through the overhead speakers, and the Fangloria insignia appears on the screen. It's a tree, with multiple curling branches that stretch out into a semicircle, and matching roots that extend the same length as the branches. At its trunk is a single eye. It's supposed to belong to Gaia, the goddess the nobles worship, but the double crowns that make up her eyelashes make me wonder if the nobles believe that the monarchs are the gods. The image fades, replaced by Jimeno Montana, the Minister of Media and Oasis Vision. His blue-black hair identifies him as a noble, and he wears it swept off his face in a braid that extends beyond his lower back. Nobody knows his age, and it's hard to tell, with his deep terracotta skin obscuring any fine lines or wrinkles. Dad can remember his father claiming to have watched Montana on the screens as a boy. "Good evening, Fangloria." He pauses, but nobody in the crowd returns his greeting. "And now, for today's news." Montana shares the usual updates, which are mostly productivity levels of the harvesters and the industrials, those who work in the factories in the expanse of land between our region and the oasis. It's tedious and designed to make us compete instead of cooperate, but whichever town produces the most output gets a dozen crates of beer and bonus water rations for the next day. For us, this water can mean the difference between our home produce succeeding or drying on the vines. Next is news that the Armstrad ambassador has arrived to supervise the building of a new hospital and to negotiate the sale of 5,000 health monitors. My gaze wanders to the lights blinking on and off on Montana's ear cuff. He has probably had his monitor since grandfather was still alive and young. How many of those devices will trickle down to the harvesters? I mutter, already knowing the answer. Rice leans close and whispers, "No harvester would get any work done with all those dehydration alarms blazing in the fields." I snort. Thirst is a constant companion here. The nobles allow us just enough water to labor. Montana launches into a speech about how a young acolyte of Gaia spent weeks in isolation during one of the many plagues of the 21st century. Gaia showed him a vision of the destruction of the world and told him to gather followers to build a new land. I tune out, because it's the story of Noah, but instead of a flood there are nuclear bombs, natural disasters, and oceans swallowing the coast. Instead of an ark and 2 of each animal, there's an underground bunker filled with the ancestors of the nobles. When he introduces the Princess Trials section of the news, he explains that Fangloria is a place where anyone can ascend to royalty. In each generation, girls from every echelon get the chance to become the queen. Rice leans into me and mutters, "Guess how many industrials and harvesters have won the Princess Trials?" "The same amount who get Armstrad monitors?" I ask. One corner of his lip curls into the barest of smiles. Montana clasps his hands together. "And now, news from the Princess Trials. Everyone give a round of applause to Circe Astor, Lady-at-Arms to Queen Damascena." A woman steps on screen with deep mahogany skin, cropped black hair, and eyes as green as malachite. She wears a fuchsia jacket with a high collar that wraps around her neck, nearly skimming the Armstrad monitor on her ear. The golden crown, eye, and tree insignia on her epaulets mark her as a general. "Thank you." She inclines her head but doesn't smile. Circe Astor is as serious as the weapons she wields. The camera pans out to reveal the rest of her garment, a catsuit that hugs her waist and skims her hips. Holsters wrap around it like corsets, and I count 4 handguns. Circe Astor is the Queen's lady-in-waiting, bodyguard, and closest confidant, wrapped in a beautiful, deadly package. Rice's arm wraps around my waist, and he pulls me into his side. "Thank you, Zia, for securing our life together." All the air leaves my lungs in a shocked breath. I turn away from the screen to gauge his expression. "What do you mean?" In the fading light, Rice's eyes are like the morning sky, filled with the promise of a better day. "Someone's going to be at my side after the revolution. Who better than the brave warrior who paved the way for our freedom?" As Lady Circe and Montana continue to chat on screen, I bite down on my bottom lip and examine Rice's features. Nothing in his expression says that his words are a ploy to make me complete my mission. I already agreed to enter the trials. What's the point of promising a future together, unless my attack on that guard had finally caught his attention? His brows draw together, and the arm around my waist falls. "Sorry if that was presumptuous." "It isn't," I say. Rice nods and turns to the screen. I can barely concentrate on Lady Circe's words. Montana asks her about all the girls who have already entered the pageant, and her face twists into a wry smile. I turn back to Rice. How far have they gotten with the trials? They selected which nobles will compete in the palace on Monday, he replies, still staring at the screen. On Tuesday they chose the artisans, yesterday the guardians, and today the industrials. Harvesters are tomorrow. I don't bother to ask about the foundlings. The nobles are so peculiar about genetic perfection that they probably wouldn't want to breathe the same air as someone without generations of careful screening. Montana switches to a clip of the royal family in an opulent drawing room with tall windows that overlook a rose garden. Outside, fountains spray plumes of water into the air. My lips tighten at the flagrant waste, and I focus on the royal family. Queen Damascena is clad in an ivory gown that blends with her pale features. Wearing her golden hair in a chignon with large curls framing an oval face with high cheekbones, her face is painted to perfection, highlighting her huge violet eyes. She's the winner of the last princess trials. Although the pageant took place years before my birth, Oasis Vision occasionally shows highlights of her victory. A shudder runs down my spine at the thought of parading myself in front of every citizen of Fangloria in a slinky gown with my face painted and my hair pinned and primped like a doll's. My lips twist with distaste as Queen Damascena allows Montana to kiss her hand. Next to her sits King Arius, whose face is a stoic mask. He wears a royal blue officer's tunic with gold braid trim running around its collar, down its placket, and on the cuffs. King Arius looks like something from half a millennium ago, when people fought wars with swords and cannons instead of nuclear missiles. With his neatly trimmed beard and the red sash around his jacket, the effect is elegant and heroic. I shake my head as the camera pans left to their only son. It's rare to see Prince Kevon on Oasis Vision, and it's clear from the rigid set of his shoulders that he'd rather be out doing what royals do when they're not posing for the camera. He wears a less ornate version of his father's jacket and looks like he hasn't so much as picked up a shovel. Glossy blue-black hair sweeps over a strong brow and curls around prominent cheekbones. He combines Queen Damascena's beauty with the rugged masculinity of King Arius. His eyes are so dark it's hard to tell if they're blue or brown or black. Rice turns to me. What do you think? I grimace and glance at the other harvesters in the crowd. Some of the younger girls stand with their hands clasped together in prayer to his royal pamperedness, and others sigh as though he was the most handsome young man in Fangloria. He isn't. With enough sustenance, rest, and an army of beauticians, anyone can look as good as Prince Kevon. Rice works out in the sun all day, and he is breathtaking. Leaning into him, I say, he's too pretty for my tastes. Rice returns his hand on the small of my back, and all the tension leaves me in an instant. Your Highness, says an unseen, sycophantic voice. Do you have a message for the young hopefuls vying to become your bride? I'm not sure why, but I'm holding my breath. Good luck, he enunciates in the clipped accent everyone uses on Oasis Vision. I look forward to meeting you all in person. The camera pans back to Queen Damascena, and the voice asks, As a former winner of the princess trials, what advice can you share with the harvester girls competing for one of the remaining 6 places? I whirl around and whisper, 6? Someone behind us hisses at me to be quiet. Rice raises a shoulder. Only 5 echelons qualify, and 30 girls will be invited to the palace. It's an equal split. I clench my teeth. 5,000 nobles live in Fangloria. At a rough estimate, 10% of them are aged 16 to 21. With half of them being male, that means 250 noble girls competing for 6 places. There are about 220,000 harvesters. I clutch my temple and blink the spots out of my eyes. Using the calculations above, 11,000 girls will compete for 6 places. Nausea roils in my stomach, and all the thoughts of a glorious revolution evaporate into the ether. Music restarts, snapping me out of my musings, and Montana winks at the camera. Good luck, ladies of the harvest. Please make your way to the marquees set up in each of your towns where your carriage awaits. I look forward to meeting you all at the oasis. My throat dries, and I picture the largest possible vehicles in Fangloria. Long-distance stagecoaches that transport guards to the border hold 64 passengers. Since the Harvester region holds 16 towns, it means that only 4 girls will be selected from Ragosa. Rice claps me on the back. Fall out, soldier. Mother will station someone close to the capital. Report back as soon as you find the hidden passages. I nod and turn to the marquee, where every single harvester, young, old, male, and female, are also heading. The crowd surges forward, leaving no gaps. I run around the perimeter, looking for an opening, but they've already formed a tight, impenetrable huddle. People spill out of the dome, but they can't move beyond the crowd blocking the marquee's entrance. Excited cheers and shouts fill my ears and make them ring. My jaw clenches. At this rate, they will have already selected which girls will make it to the carriage. If I don't do something drastic, I might be withered and old before our next chance for a revolution. Gunshots explode around the square's perimeter, and everybody stops. Everybody back, roars a voice over the speakers. Only girls between the ages of 16 and 21 may approach. Guards force the crowd back, and there's enough space for me to squeeze through the other harvesters. Time is running out. The screen switches to a gorgeous, flaxen-haired harvester girl walking through the door with 2 equally beautiful twins who can only be her sisters. They have similar delicate features to Queen Damascena. I've seen them around Ragosa. This footage has to be our square. I've got to hurry before they fill their quota. A quartet of oafish men steps in my path, their huge bodies an impenetrable wall. Just before I yell at them to step aside, someone behind me cries out. The crowd parts to reveal a pair of guards looping their arms around a dark-skinned man. They're dragging him toward a black van. He falls to the ground and loses his cap. When they hoist him up, it's Krim, and my supervisor's eyes lock with mine, mirroring my horror. Blood drains from my face and settles in my pounding heart. This arrest had to be about the guard I attacked earlier. I rush forward, my arms outstretched. Hey, it wasn't... Something catches my foot. I trip and stumble onto my hands and knees. What do you think you're doing? Says a girl who kneels at my side and helps me to my feet. I meet Pharrell's wide gray eyes and blurt, They're taking Krim! And you want to tell them about your poisoned darts? She hisses into my ear. With the strength of a girl used to digging trenches in the hard, dry earth, she hauls me away from Krim and into the crowd. Guilt lances through my heart, and I twist around. A guard punches Krim on the back, making him cry out and arch. I've got to help him. You'll condemn us all. Pharrell's arm tightens around my waist. My muscles go slack. What? We already gave statements. She pulls me through the crowd. If you contradict us with the truth, it means trouble for every single person working the tomato fields. Stumbling toward the marquee, at Pharrell's side, I glance through the crowds for signs of Krim, but the crowd closes around us, blocking any view of my supervisor's fate. A chill settles on my shoulders. How on earth am I going to help Krim? Chapter 4. A guard's meaty hand wraps around my forearm. I spin around. The crowd behind us has parted to let them through, and 2 armored guards stand at our backs. There's no sign of Krim, but my immediate suspicion is that he has told them the truth. The guard grins at me from behind a visor. You look like a girl who needs help. Let go. I pull at my arm, but his grip is solid. Come on, flat feet. He marches forward, grabs Pharrell, and yanks at the crowd to make a path. Everybody around us steps back, creating a few feet of space for us to advance toward the marquee. Pharrell visibly relaxes, but the escort only makes my heart rate quicken. Guards never help harvesters, so why are they helping us? As I jog to keep up with his long strides, the crowd's shouts and cheers quieten to whispers. They're probably thinking the same thing as me, and for a moment, I wonder if the marquee conceals something terrible. A line of about 36 girls gather around its entrance. Women wearing outfits similar to Lady Circe stand at the door, assessing girls. There's no pattern to who they allow inside and who they reject. I lean forward and shoot Pharrell a panicked glance, which she returns with a grimace. If I don't get through that door, the mission will fail before it even starts. Rice's admiration, faked or not, will disappear, along with any chances of a revolution. Thanks. I use my sweetest voice to the guard, who stares down at me with smiling eyes. How are they choosing which girls get inside? He grins. What would you give me if I got you inside? I snatch my gaze away, and he laughs. What a creep. He chuckles. You were tripping over yourself earlier to get to the prince. Why have you suddenly turned shy? My teeth clench, and a dozen scenarios whiz through my mind. I already tried breaking away, and that didn't work. He's wearing a helmet, so slapping him would only hurt my hand and get me arrested. And I would probably end up in the back of a vehicle with Corporal can't keep his big mouth shut. I'll take my chances with the door ladies, thank you, I say in clipped tones. The guard behind him snorts, and I turn around to shoot him my filthiest glare. He's silver blonde, with eyes greener than the cornfields, but it's at odds with his olive skin. My lips tighten with disapproval. The nobles must pay guards well if they get to use cosmetics. After what feels like an eternity, we reach the crowd of hopefuls at the door. The guard releases my arm but doesn't return to his duties. Instead, he and his companion usher the girls forward. All vestiges of sunlight have disappeared, and the spotlights provide no heat to compensate for the drop in temperature. A cool, dusty breeze meanders through the crowd, and I regret not taking a jacket. Pharrell and I huddle close, occasionally stealing glances at the guard, who stands close to his companion and surveys us the way people deliberate over which goat they think might produce the most milk. 4 women stand at the door, grabbing harvester girls' faces, turning them from left to right, and examining their features. They allow some in through the white door, but turn away most. Frustration wells in my chest faster than I can push it out with my harried breaths. What are we? Pieces of fruit to be inspected for flaws? As the crowd before us thins to a handful of girls, Pharrell's fingers curl around mine. We're next. Yeah, I rasp. The water Rice gave me earlier has already worked its way through my system and escaped my body through its pores. My bladder is empty, and I feel an ache in my kidneys. A rough pair of gloved hands grabs my chin, and a light shines in my face. Smile, says a voice. Let me see your teeth. All thoughts of being scrutinized like goats or pieces of fruit evaporate into the night air. They think we're horses. Squinting, I pull my features into what I hope is a grin. Her hand drops from my face, and she ushers me toward the white door. Go through. Before I can turn around for a glimpse of Pharrell, the door opens, and another gloved hand pulls me inside. The marquee's interior is as white as a hospital, with a bank of 6 desks in front. Behind them, a dozen Perspex booths run down each side and are filled with medical staff clad in blue hazard suits. They lead girls in and out of the opaque structures. My feet stop moving, and Pharrell bumps into my back. She has to hold on to my shoulders to keep from knocking us to the ground. What the? Name, snaps a woman with a blonde chignon. She sits at a desk, wearing a pale blue version of Lady Circe's catsuit, and holds a thin computer tablet. A woman at another desk barks questions at Pharrell, who steps to the side to answer. It's the usual inquiries guards make to identify us against the census records, but with a few additions. "When was the last time you had sexual intercourse?" asks my interrogator. Every muscle in my body stiffens, and I blurt out, "What?" "Answer the question, Miss Calico." Her voice hardens. Hot shame spreads over my skin like poisoned ants. "I've never." The questions continue along this vein, and she wants to know if I've ever kissed a boy on the mouth, and on other places too intimate to repeat. When she moves on to alcohol use and recreational drugs, my body relaxes. We couldn't afford moonshine even if we wanted, and it's difficult enough to obtain medicinal drugs here in Ragosa, let alone the ones people take for fun. The computer transcribes my words into responses. When the interview finishes, the women line us against the wall and take photos. Camera flashes fill my vision, turning it an electric white. "For the duration of the princess trials, you will wear an Armstrong bracelet until your elimination," says a woman in rapid, clipped words. "What?" I blink the light from my eyes. Another woman slams a piece of metal on my wrist, which expands and forms a closed band that tightens around me. 100 needles prick my skin, and I howl. "What is this?" She ushers me through the bank of desks to the hospital part of the marquee, where a tall female medic awaits with another computer tablet. I can only see her eyes, with the hooded suit and surgical mask obscuring her other features. "ZMA's Calico, 16, neophyte." "What's a neophyte?" My voice rises 2 octaves. Ignoring me, the medic hurries to a booth in the middle of the room. "This way, Calico." A glance over my shoulder tells me that Pharrell also gets fitted with one of those bracelets. Her pretty face contorts with the same kind of terror from earlier today when I pricked her with a poisoned dart. I turn around and follow the medic. Her booth contains a bed-sized Perspex platform, and she stands with her gloved hands resting on a trolley filled with trays of plastic instruments that make my heart flip. "Take off your underpants and lie down for your internal exam," she says. A bolt of shock jolts my heart, and I wrap the unmonitored arm around my waist. "Why?" "Anyone who enters the oasis must be deemed healthy and free of contaminants." "What kind of—" "This is strictly a voluntary procedure," the medic snaps. "Withdraw your consent so I can release your monitor and let you leave." "And the trials?" I ask, already knowing the answer. "Nobody enters the oasis without being deemed—" "All right, I get it." I step into the booth and grit my teeth. This is for the revolution, and when it comes, the oasis and its precious supply of water will be for everyone, and not just a group of nobles and those they deem clean enough to serve them. Once I'm in position, blue sanitizing light fills the booth. I guess it's for the protection of the medic, who frowns as though she's just about to handle dangerous chemicals. She murmurs orders, telling me to place my wrist on an armrest that blips in time with my pounding heart. The internal exam aches and pinches and stretches places no human has seen, and my insides burn with rage and humiliation. Who will examine Prince Kevon to make sure he's clean enough for us? "No!" screams a girl in the other booth. "That can't be right!" I raise my head off the platform and rest my weight on my elbows. "What's happening?" "It could be anything," mutters the medic. "Pregnancy, toxins, disease, anatomical anomaly, genetic masculinity." My insides clench. "What?" "Lie still and relax or I'll have to start over again." The girl next to me isn't the only one to scream. Whatever these tests do, they're weeding out girls faster than I can pluck dandelion shoots from a field of tomato trees. My eyes squeeze shut, and I breathe hard as a narrow instrument burrows a path of agony through my insides. Eventually, the lights turn from blue to white, and the ordeal ends. "Get dressed," says the medic. "Walk to the end of the room and take a seat." "Did I pass the test?" I ask. She has already left the booth. The next room is a quarter of the size of our kitchen and is lined with long benches. A trio of flaxen-haired sisters sits together at the far end by another Perspex door. I've seen them around town, but I don't know their names. The tallest is the older sister, and the other two are identical twins. All three raise their heads but don't say hello. Right now, I want to curl up somewhere and fall asleep. Nausea swirls through my insides, which throb and spasm in time with my pulse. I lower myself onto the bench furthest away from the sisters and stare into my hands. No man is worth enduring this level of torture and humiliation. And I wonder if the noble girls or candidates from any of the other echelons had to suffer anything like this the day before their trial started. The Harvester region is next to the Foundlings, which is on the other side of the Great Wall and its horrors beyond. Was this why they subjected us to these tests? Pharrell's words from the backyard rattle through my skull. If I hadn't taken out the guard, he would have made her ineligible for the princess trials. She had probably known what would happen in the marquee, but that guard kissed her. Would that be grounds for disqualification? The door opens, and my head snaps up. Two girls enter, one short and stout, with a mop of purplish curls, and the other a willowy girl with red hair. It's more of a strawberry blonde than the carrot orange of Pharrell's. She walks unsteadily, looking as though the wind could blow her away like a dandelion seed. "By Gaia," she says, her voice rising in pitch. "That was awful. These people are monsters and perverts lower than foundlings." I dip my head and examine the blinking lights on my wrist cuff. She's right, but talk like that can get a person taken away for sedition. The door opens again, and Pharrell steps in, her face as pale as a sun-bleached bone. Tears glisten on her gray eyes, and a lump forms in my throat. What a day she has had. I hadn't tussled with a guard, yet my insides feel about to shatter. "How was it?" I whisper. She shakes her head, drops onto the bench next to me, and winces. Same here. The red-haired girl's rant picks up in volume until she's screeching her anger at the violation. At the far corner, the girl with the mop of curls claps her hands to her ears and squeezes her eyes shut. My insides cringe. At this rate, she's going to alert the guards. "Stop it," I say. She rushes at me with her teeth bared. "Is that what you want? Do you think it's fair that Harvester girls get violated for the benefit of one spoiled little prince?" If this was the secure environment of a Red Runner cell, I would rant alongside her. But it's not. "Someone's going to hear you." The girl straightens. "Maybe they should. Maybe all those people standing in squares thinking that the princess trials are the biggest opportunity in a generation should know what the nobles do behind closed doors to innocent girls." Pharrell whimpers and huddles to my side. "This is subversion," I hiss. The door opens, and a guard steps in with his bleached blonde companion. It's the one from earlier who grabbed my arm, only this time his eyes aren't smiling. "Out," he says to the girl. "You've disqualified yourself from the trials." She bares her teeth and snarls, "Not before I've had my say." My heart flips, and every instinct screams at me to jump up and stand between this Harvester girl and the pair. But that would ruin my mission and help no one. Instead, I clench my fists and glower. "Do you know what they did in there?" she screeches. The guard scowls. "A routine fertility test? Do you know how many women in the other echelons struggling to conceive would kill for such an advanced medical procedure?" My skin crawls, and I feel like a sickly tomato sapling covered in aphids. I shake my head from side to side and scratch at the sides of my face. Was this a lie, or the might of Armstrad technology? The dark-haired guard grabs her arms and marches her out of the room. Pharrell wraps her hand around mine, and I squeeze back. They won't kill her. Not for words. But the events of the afternoon rush to the front of my mind. I lurch forward, and Pharrell pulls me back. "What are you doing?" she hisses. "I've got to check. You'll get yourself arrested and disqualified from the trials." The back of my eyes sting, and my chest tightens. Mother's voice rings in my ears, telling me that I can't protect everyone. And Carolina's voice tells me to focus on the mission. The rest of us sit in silence, no one daring to speculate on that girl's fate. At best, they will tie her to the whipping post for a public lashing. I don't want to think about the worst. The scars on my back throb with remembered pain, and I suck deep lungfuls of air to keep calm. I'm doing this for girls like her, girls like my former self, who witnessed too much at a young age, and the 200,000+ harvesters surviving on the brink of dehydration. 16 girls, drawls a voice. This was more than expected. I glance up to find a pale woman in a cerise catsuit, flanked by 2 women in white. Each stare down at us with cold smiles. Behind them stands 2 harvester women, the mayor's wife, and Carolina Wintergreen, his assistant. There are 4 places for Ragosa on the coach, and 13 girls whose beauty and health qualify them for the princess trials. The cat-suited woman's smile turns down around the edges. One of you has already eliminated herself and will await an appropriate reprimand. My throat thickens, and it takes an effort to continue breathing. Carolina's face hardens into a blank mask, and I guess she's also frustrated at not being able to run to the girl's rescue. The woman continues. We have evaluated your applications. Those of you whose names I don't call out will be eligible for servitude at the Oasis, should you desire to move up in our society. I tear my gaze from Carolina and wait for the woman in cerise to stop drawing out the suspense. The following girls will leave through the doors at the end and enter the coach. Pharrell Pyrus. My friend squeaks and raises her hand. Vidalat Solar. The stout girl with the purple curls nods. Emera and Polenta Hull. 2 of the 3 blonde sisters wrap their arms around each other and squeal. Every ounce of hope escapes through my nostrils, and I deflate like an empty bladder. I failed. Why? The rejected twin shoots up, leaving her sisters staring at each other. I'm identical to Lena. Why didn't you call out my name, too? The woman glances down at her tablet. I see, she says, not sounding like she understands why she chose one twin and not the other. Let me consult my notes. Mr. Sprawdleaf. Carolina speaks to the woman with uncharacteristic deference. The Hull sisters are beautiful, but are you sure about admitting twins? A queen with an identical counterpart might be disruptive to the peace of our nation. The woman taps her bottom lip and stares into the screen, not seeming to have heard Carolina's words. One of the women in white pipes up. Prunella, I have an idea. Why don't we ditch the twin? The older sister is far prettier, and Prince Kevon isn't going to need 3 girls who look the same. An excellent idea. Prunella Broadleaf's head snaps up. I steal a glance at Carolina, whose brows flicker with the barest trace of annoyance. Mr. Broadleaf. I stand and dip into an awkward curtsy. There's a blonde, a redhead, and a girl with purple hair. How about a brunette? And you are? She asks. Zia Mays Calico, mistress. Prunella Broadleaf glances around the small room at the other girls who passed this first obstacle of the princess trials. Vidalat and Pharrell stare at me, their eyes wide, but Emera, the sister of the twins, glowers. She probably thinks I ruined their chances. If the girl who hadn't been chosen had kept quiet, nobody would have noticed her twin. My pulse echoes in my ears, and it feels like my entire head is pounding with anticipation. I urge Carolina to say something, anything to push the decision in my favor. Prunella Broadleaf must choose me, or there will be no revolution. Fine. She gives her hand a dismissive wave. Send for their parents. Hope springs through my insides. I've passed my first obstacle. If my luck continues at this rate, I'll be in the palace for the trials by sunset tomorrow. Chapter 5. As Prunella Broadleaf and her entourage leave the waiting room and the door clicks shut behind them, Her words burrow into a part of my mind that deals with paranoia. What do they want with our parents? My breaths quicken, my fingers tighten around the bench, and my heel won't stop bobbing up and down. The white floor blurs before my eyes as I imagine the most likely scenario. Pharrell rubs her hands back and forth over the apron of her dress. She's probably as anxious as I am, but the noise grates on my nerves. With each passing moment, my chest tightens until I can make only the shallowest of breaths. If the organizers performed fertility and other kinds of tests on us, it makes sense for them to want to check our parents. A shudder travels down my spine at the thought of either of them in that medical booth. The sound of another door clicking open breaks me out of my thoughts, and the 2 guards from before walk in through the door they dragged out that protester. One of them raises a gloved hand and beckons, "Winners, follow us." As the other girls stand, Emira, the twins' sister, hisses at me with a venomous look that makes a breath catch in the back of my throat. Of course, she blames me for her sisters not getting through to the next round. What she doesn't understand is that these trials will be meaningless. When the revolution comes, life will be better for every harvester, not just a select few who get to eat excellent food at the palace. I stand, pull back my shoulders, and push thoughts of what might be happening to Mom and Dad to the back of my mind. The organizers might just want to take photos, or ask if we had tantrums or were well-behaved as children. If I succumb to paranoia, I'll never complete my mission. The dark-haired guard leads us through another part of the marquee with perspex wall dividers that stretch up to the ceiling with 4 evenly spaced doors. I'm the last to leave the waiting room and pass the platinum blonde guard who takes up the rear. As we reach the first door, the blonde places a hand on my shoulder. "This room is yours." I glance at the next door, which his colleague opens for Pharrell. "What's happening next?" I whisper. "The assistants will pick your family out of the crowd and give you a chance to say goodbye in private." Oh. All the tension around my chest releases in an outward breath. He grins. "Were you expecting an interrogation?" A laugh that I think is more relief than mirth escapes my lips, and my gaze skims the 3 stripes on his arm that marks him as a sergeant. "This entire day has been unexpected," I say. He opens the door to another white room, with the kind of stuffed armchairs I've only ever seen on Sundays, when they play old movies or shows on Oasis Vision. The familiarity eases a little of the tension, but now my stomach flutters at the thought of facing Mom and Dad. I can't predict how they will react to my joining the princess trials without their permission. I step inside, and he closes the door with a click. The slide of a mechanism turning in a lock is no surprise. On legs that feel like wooden pegs, I walk to the armchair furthest from the door. The seat is harder than expected, but maybe this firm surface is what I need to calm before I face Mom and Dad. I close my eyes and suck in deep, meditative breaths, the way Rice teaches us at the beginning and end of each Red Runner meeting. Inhale through the nose until the ribcage expands, hold for a count of 5, and then a slow exhale through the mouth. The door opens, and the guard lets in Mom, whose eyes are wide and filled with tears. She's alone. I scramble to my feet. Where are Dad and the twins? "Zia!" She hugs me so tightly that all the breath leaves my lungs, and her insides shake with sobs. There's a garbled explanation that I'm allowed 10 minutes with 4 visitors, so they're each going to say goodbye on their own. Mom's never broken down like this, not even when the guards wouldn't send her father's ashes after his death in the Barrens. She's always the optimistic one in the family, the one who keeps us together, the one who makes desserts from cactus fruits and can turn lizards into delicious casseroles. My chest tightens. "Mom, what's wrong?" She draws back with the most dazzling smile. "You listened." My mind blanks, and it takes a heartbeat to realize that she's referring to our conversation from earlier in the day. She thinks that her speech about joining the trials to influence the nobles actually worked, and I feel like a fraud. The only reason I'm sitting here is because of Carolina. Once I'm in the palace, I won't even spare Prince Kevon a second thought. The mission requires me to find a way for the Red Runners to enter, and I want to be eliminated the moment that mission is complete. Mom's hands tighten around my forearms. I'm so proud of you. She guides us to the sofa, tears still streaming from her eyes. Our teacher showed us parts of the last princess trials, and it seemed like another world. I couldn't even imagine myself serving at the palace, let alone having a daughter compete to be the next queen of Fangloria. Nausea churns in my gut. Mom's unique childhood will forever make her grateful to the nobles for her life in the Harvester echelon, but all I can see are the injustices. I lower my gaze and raise a shoulder. It's not like I have a chance of winning. Don't talk like that. She squeezes my arm. Everyone invited to the Oasis wins. Did you know that most contestants rise above the echelons of their birth? My brows draw together. You never told me that. Because you never showed any interest. Mom wipes her face with a handkerchief. Mistress Melrose competed in the trials when the previous king came of age. I lean forward. Mom always speaks fondly of the noble who taught the foundling children modern history. Carolina and Rice call the class modern propaganda, which is a more accurate description. Modern history is all about how Fangloria expanded its territory over time by moving the Great Wall. It's also about how grateful we should all be because the nobles gave our ancestors sanctuary from the barren and polluted wasteland beyond Fangloria. The textbooks are a constant reminder that we're guests of Fangloria and so transparently biased. What about the other countries and those who live wild beyond the wall who survived without the nobles' help? If you can focus on befriending Prince Kevon and let everyone see the brave, beautiful, and kind girl beneath that scowl, you can win. My lips form a tight line. I can't let Mom think I'm serious about the trials, or she'll be upset when I'm not clamoring for the prince. But speaking out, with guards outside the door, might lead to my disqualification before even reaching the oasis. Mom, I struggle for a way to communicate the truth. Prince Kevon probably prefers the noble. Mistress Melrose told us the real reasons for the princess trials, she blurts. Do you remember the House of Habsburg? I draw back and remember a painting of a king with a severe underbite. The royals from old Europe who kept marrying their cousins? Yes. The noble echelon all descended from a small group of people. Most of them are related in some way. Irritation spreads across my skin, and I clench my hands around my knees. This feels like one of the speeches she makes when trying to justify rationing and quotas. Mom, listen to me. She squeezes my hand. Mistress Melrose said that Fangloria was built on the ruins of a world of excesses. We've learned from the mistakes of our ancestors and don't mine the earth, destroy forests, or create industrial waste. Another important lesson we learned was genetic diversity. I pinch the bridge of my nose. So, Prince Kevon needs a bride who isn't his cousin several times removed? Don't turn this into a joke. Her voice is unusually sharp, and I glance into her flashing eyes. Did they test your blood? Perform internal examinations? Heat rises to my cheeks. How did you know? Foundlings go through rigorous tests before we're allowed through the minor wall. I swallow hard. Mom's referring to the electrified fence that separates the Harvester region from the Barrens. According to modern history, the Barrens is the largest expanse of land within Fangloria, as the wall continually expands. Eventually, soil builders will turn that wasteland into fertile soil for building crops. She crossed over when she was 13, and my chest tightens at the thought of a young girl undergoing the same invasive and humiliating examinations. Sorry, I whisper. Mom shakes her head. What's a brief moment of discomfort compared to a whole life beyond imagination? My gaze drops to my lap, and I force myself not to react. Conditions in the Barrens must be terrible if she thinks that drudgery and starvation are aspirational living. She wraps her arms around my shoulders and presses a kiss on my temple. You're clever and beautiful and genetically perfect. The royals need an infusion of new blood. Why can't it be yours? And when you're in the palace, you can suggest all the reforms you want. The door opens, and a pair of footsteps rush inside. "Zia!" chorus two identical voices. I glance up into the tear-streaked faces of Flint and Yosef. They crash into me and bury their heads into my chest. "What's wrong?" I stroke their little blonde heads. Flint points at the guard. "He wouldn't let us go in together. He's mean," shouts Yosef. "Boys," Mom and I both hiss. At the door, the blonde guard raises both hands and grins. "As you can see, they're both together and present." Mom and I both exhale relieved breaths. Even though most guards just want to do their jobs and return to their barracks, even Mom can't deny that some guards revel in the power they hold over harvesters. Guards like the one who murdered Mr. Wintergreen. Guards like the one who tried to abduct Pharrell. "Mrs. Calico," says the blonde sergeant, "it's time to leave." Mom presses a kiss on my temple and rises. She walks to the exit and murmurs, "Good luck." As soon as the guard shuts the door, two identical faces with the same missing tooth grin up at me. A laugh huffs out from my chest and I roll my eyes. The blonde-haired guard clearly isn't used to the sneaky tactics of little kids. For the next 10 minutes, Flint gives me a list of things to bring back from the palace, while Yosef demands that I ask Prince Kevon to take them over the mountains to see the ships. My little brothers are too young to understand things like the echelons, and Mom shields them from the worst of harvester life. They think I'm going for an adventure, when it's really a mission that will change all our lives. Warmth fills my chest as I gaze into their innocent hazel eyes. Thanks to Carolina and Rice, Flint and Yosef won't ever grow up knowing hunger or thirst or toil. The door opens again, and Dad stands in the doorway, with his arms folded over his chest. He isn't smiling or snarling or scowling, and a knot tightens in my stomach. I can't imagine what he's going to say, but where Mom is optimistic and grateful to the nobles, Dad is not. He's the same height as the guard, but broader, even though he's wearing regulation brown overalls and a shirt that has yellowed from age. Dad and I share the same mahogany hair, but his eyes are the same shade of hazel as the twins. To everyone else, he's the dedicated superior of Cornfield 22. But at home, Dad is all smiles and hugs. His restrained expression and the tense set of his jaw and shoulders tell me that he is displeased. "Time's up, boys," says the blonde guard. "No!" Flint howls from my lap. "No!" Yosef howls from the floor, where he's sitting on my feet. My throat spasms, and I hope the guard lets my brothers remain, as a buffer between my dad and me. Dad fixes them with a stern glare. "Go to your mother." I know that tone. It's the, "if you don't do what I say this instant, I'll swat your behind" tone, which Dad hasn't used on me in a decade. Both boys stop howling and scramble to their feet. After a lingering hug, they rush out of the door, and the sergeant shuts me in with Dad, who won't look at me. His gaze fixes on the armchair opposite, a sign that he's struggling for control. I chew on the inside of my lip. Nobody is allowed to discuss their membership of the Red Runners. We're a secret group, and the mere mention of our existence, even to a family member, might expose our group to the guards. Nobody wants to risk a slew of mass executions, which is what Carolina says will happen at the merest hint of treason. I think he's also part of another Red Runner cell. That, or he's sympathetic to the cause. It was Dad who cradled Carolina and Rice as they cried about the death of Mr. Wintergreen. Dad, who reported the shooting to the mayor, the guards, and even wrote on behalf of the widow and her son for Mr. Wintergreen's ashes. Because Dad kept the murdered man's name on everyone's lips, they awarded Carolina an easy job as the mayor's assistant. After a long minute of silence, he walks to the end of the sofa and sits. "What have you done?" His words are more sigh than speech. My throat dries and I swallow hard. What on earth does he know? "Dad." My tongue darts out to lick my dry lips. What were you thinking?" he says from between clenched teeth. It's just a beauty pageant. Suddenly, I'm 12 years old again, and trembling. This time, it's not because I'm traumatized by what I've seen. Now I'm terrified at what Dad isn't telling me. I was your age at the last princess trials, he mumbles. What was it like? They'll tell you it's just pretty girls in ball gowns, but it's not. My breath quickens, and I lean forward, my eyes wide. What happens? They form alliances. He raises a thick finger. Sometimes nobles with other echelons, other times the echelons stick to themselves. I clasp my hands, waiting for him to elaborate. So far, it doesn't sound dangerous. Queen Damasceno won last time because she allied with one of the cleverest and most beautiful girls in the princess trials. What happened to the other girl? I whisper. She became the lady at arms. My head tilts to the side. Lady Circe was in the trials? Dad nods. From the guardian echelon, if I remember right, and the favorite of King Arius. Why didn't she win? I ask. Dad's lips tighten. It's the expression he makes each time I ask a question when the answer is obvious. If Lady Circe was a guardian, the previous king probably wouldn't want her to become the next queen. But if she stepped back and let her noble ally take center stage, then Lady Circe would get an important role in the new court. They made a deal? I whisper. Dad nods. The skills your mother and I taught you should have set you up for a decent life within our echelon. But if you have aspirations for more, neither of us will object. My mouth drops open. Dad thinks I'm serious about the trials. I glance at the door, wondering if I should say something, but I remember the mission and let my mouth click shut. Don't aim to be the queen, he says. Make friends with all the girls, and maybe the winner will like you well enough to serve at her court. But Zia, he hisses through clenched teeth. I jolt at the ferocity in his tone. Dad? The bird that stays under cover of the leaves never gets shot. Why? My throat convulses. Because nobody sees it. Don't be the bird who launches herself out of the trees. Do you hear me? I nod, but I can't work out if he's trying to warn me not to become the queen, or because the other girls might shoot me down, or because there's going to be a revolution. Now I regret obeying Rice's orders to keep my membership of the Red Runners a secret from Dad. The door opens, and Carolina stands in the doorway with Rice. Dad's jaw drops, and all the color leaches from his face. The panicked look he gives me tells me everything. 1, he knows that Carolina leads the Red Runners. 2, he now knows that I'm a member. And 3, he also knows that I have joined the princess trials on a mission. All right, Mr. Calico, says the blonde sergeant. It's Mrs. Wintergreen's turn. No one else can see his expression because his back is to the door, but it's the same helpless rage he holds back each time I get whipped. Something in my heart crumbles. I'm no longer the girl he knew, and I'm not sure that even the prospect of a revolution will ease Dad's suffering. Mr. Calico, says the guard. Dad stands. This time, he's not avoiding my gaze. The accusation in his eyes slices through me like a scythe. If I fail my mission, if I get caught, it won't just be me facing execution. Without a word, he turns and walks out of the room. Carolina's gaze slides towards Dad as he passes, but from her unchanged expression, I don't think he made any eye contact. We came to wish you the best of luck. Carolina claps her hands together. When the door clicks shut behind Dad, the older woman rushes at me for a hug. She's all bones and angles like me, and it's more awkward than the soft comfort of Mom or Dad. One of her hands runs down my arm, and her long fingers wrap around my hand. This is getting awkward. I try to step away, but her grip on me tightens, and she's interlacing her fingers with mine. My gaze darts to Rice, who nods and smiles. Carolina presses something warm and metallic into the pad of my thumb, which pulses. I glance at Rice again, who gives me the same amiable nod. Realization slaps me upside the head. It's a device. As soon as I wrap my fingers around it, Carolina releases me and steps back. "Congratulations, my dear," she says, in the voice she uses in public. It's more matronly than a grandmother's, and sounds more patriotic than anything I've heard on Oasis Vision. "I always knew you were destined for greatness." "Thank you." It's a struggle to keep the tremble out of my voice. I glance at Rice. "Would you like to sit?" Carolina clasps my hand and guides me to the sofa, while Rice takes the armchair opposite and adopts the posture of a king. My heart sinks at the distance between us, but maybe it's for the best. I'm supposed to be eager to marry Prince Kevon, and the camera shouldn't pick up any evidence of our affection. Rice places his hands on the chair's arms. "Well done, Zia." Heat rushes to my cheeks. "Thank you. I want to make Ragosa proud." The slight curve of his lips says he knows that I'm using Ragosa as a code word for Rice. Carolina turns to her son. "I wonder if the people at the trials will permit you to send letters from Zia's family?" My breath catches. Rice is a deliverer, one of the few harvesters permitted to leave the region. His work often involves loading wagons, but he sometimes transports food to the oasis and even beyond the mountains to Royal Navy ships. "Do you think that could be possible?" I ask. "There's no harm in making a request." Carolina twists her wedding ring. I can only nod and imagine Rice sneaking into the oasis for midnight trysts. "When do you think—" The ring buzzes. It's Veil code, a system of single and double pulses that spells out the word doubtful. My brows draw together. Is Carolina trying to tell me that Rice will be at the oasis? I glance across the room, and the gleam in Rice's eyes says everything. As the mayor's assistant, Carolina is responsible for detailed scheduling and can send any of the deliverers to far-flung places. Warmth fills my chest, and I press my lips together to hold back my elation. With regular visits from Rice, I'll have something more to look forward to than the revolution. Carolina tilts her head to the side and smiles. "What were you going to say, my dear?" "I was wondering when I would appear on Oasis Vision." "Tomorrow evening, I hope," says Rice. "I'll watch the princess trials every day." "As will I." Carolina stands. My heart pulses a rapid beat. Is she going to leave us alone? I glance at Rice, who also stands. Carolina places both hands on my shoulder. "I will pray every night for Gaia to send you the guidance through this exciting time." "Thank you." "Gaia will bless you if you look for the signs," she adds. I nod. This is a common phrase old harvesters use, but Carolina's tone implies that she and Rice will communicate using more than the ring. "Prince Kevon will be a wonderful leader," Carolina says, but I'm sure she's referring to her son. "And I pray to Gaia that you will be the one to lead with His Highness." The door creaks open behind us. Carolina kisses both my cheeks and steps to the side. Rice's eyes glimmer with barely restrained excitement. "I can't wait to see you on Oasis Vision." He kisses one cheek. "You're going to make a great queen." I wait for the second kiss, but the blonde sergeant tells them it's time to leave. Rice murmurs goodbye and follows Carolina out of the room. The guard steps aside to let him leave, and I notice that Rice is slighter than the blonde man, but that's because Rice is not padding himself with armor. "Is he a relative?" asks the blonde guard. "Carolina Wintergreen is like a second mother." It's not exactly a lie, as she is my mentor. "So he's a big brother?" I smile and nod. Dad's stricken reaction fades to the back of my mind. Naturally, he worries about my involvement with the Red Runners, but they're going to look out for me while I'm in the oasis. The sergeant places a hand on my shoulder. "Wait here while I gather up the other girls." When the door clicks shut, the ring in my palm pulses out the code for revolution. Chapter 6. We step out into the floodlit night, onto a red carpet that leads to a shiny black stagecoach. Men wearing camera goggles film us as we pass, and the roar of the crowd makes my spirits soar. Guards flank our carpet from the door to the entrance to the coach. This is the second time today that pride swells my chest. I beam at Pharrell, who returns a dazzling smile. Emira is the first to walk the carpet. "Thank you," she yells, without a trace of the bitterness from before. "I love you all." Vidalat Solar trudges behind her and raises a hand. I can't see her expression, but from the stiffness in her posture, she doesn't feel comfortable with the attention. "You first," I say to Pharrell. With a sharp nod, she strides forward, displaying the same grace as Emira. I wonder if Prince Kevon likes redheads or blondes like his mother. A moment later, it's my turn to walk, and my heart rate doubles. All the moisture leaves my throat and gathers on the palms of my hands. Imagining the footage being used one day to explain to children of the new democracy how it all began, I push my shoulders back and smile. The carpet's thick tread gives under my jute espadrilles, and I glide forward with the poise and grace of a woman worthy of capturing Rice Wintergreen's heart. Harvesters crowd behind the walls of guards. I glance into the crowd for signs of Mom, Dad, or the twins, and meet nothing but a mass of faces. My heart sinks, but I hold my expression into a smile. If things go right, I might return to them by the end of the week. When we step into the stagecoach, nearly 40 other Harvester girls sit in the back seats, and I wonder when Montana's announcement started among the other towns. From the bored looks of some of the girls, they've been here since the morning. "Ha," says a male voice. "I told you that skinny one would be a virgin." I whirl around and glare at a pair of guards. "What?" One of them takes off his helmet and leers. It's the guard who helped us through the crowd. "We saw you tripping over yourself to get to the front. You must be eager to meet that prince." I raise my chin and glower into his mocking brown eyes. "What are you, jealous?" His grin widens. "Hardly. But it looks like you might be jealous of all the beautiful women on board." Prickly heat rises to my cheeks. I long for the day when I'm the one holding the gun so I can throw the truth in his ugly, grinning face. His friend, the sergeant with the silver blonde hair, takes off his helmet and shakes his head, but I'm too busy glowering at Corporal Clown to see his expression. The dark-haired guard nudges his friend, who I decide to call Sergeant Silver. "What do you think of this one?" "You've dyed your hair black to look like Prince Kevon," I say in a baby voice. "But nobody wants a cheap imitation." Sergeant Silver chokes down a laugh. "Zia!" Pharrell pulls me into a seat, and I sink into its cushioned depths. "What are you doing?" "He's so irritating." Her gaze flickers to the pair who are now standing above us with annoyingly wide grins, and her pretty features morph into a tight frown. She stands and holds on to the backrest of the seat in front. "Swap places." "Why? He won't irritate you if you're at the window." "Fine." I scoot to the seat furthest from the aisle and notice the refrigerator beneath the armrests of the places in front. I open it, enjoying the freezing air that puffs out, and grab a water bottle from the armrest. It's nearly a pint, over half a day's rations. The seal opens with a crack, and I take my first sip of what tastes like nectar. "Smoky water," I read out loud on the label. "Filtered through layers of ancient rock and infused with watermelon, kiwi, and lime." Pharrell takes a sip and hums. "Even the oasis water tastes better." My throat closes. I had always pictured the nobles eating and living better than the other echelons, but drinking water that tastes of fruit? I shake my head and sip another mouthful of smoky water. I couldn't wait for everyone at home to try it too. Emira Hull, the twin sister, sits with Vidalat Solar in the seats in front of ours. She sticks her head in the gap between the backrests. "Hey." I exchange a glance with Pharrell. "You," she hisses. "The skinny attention seeker." "What?" I snap. You stole my sister's place. Before I can reply, Pharrell says, they were never going to let a twin onto the coach. Emera points through the gap and scowls. I won't forget this. I purse my lips. Soon she'll understand that marrying Prince Kevon won't lead to anything more but a place beside him in his cell. The carriage speeds out of town, and I glance out of the window at wheat fields lit by the half moon. We're headed in the direction of Panicum, which grows mostly millet. I've been there a few times with Dad to barter wild herbs with the apothecaries, but I've never left the harvester region. Corporal Cringe sits in the seat opposite and leans across. Pharrell straightens, blocking his view of me. You like Prince Kevon, huh? He asks. Pharrell makes a choked giggle. These trials are a good opportunity to see if we're a match. Why would you apply if you don't know him? I sit back in my seat and roll my eyes. That's a question he needs to pose to his superiors, not to girls at the lowest echelon of society and desperate for a day off work. A laugh bubbles from my chest. It catches at the back of my throat, and my lips curl into a smile. If only Prince Kevon knew. We pass acres of crop fields that stretch out into the dark. Roads in the harvester region aren't lit. That would be a waste of energy, considering everyone's usually in bed to start work before the sun becomes too hot. Pharrell continues chatting with the guard for the next 20 or so minutes until the bus slows, and we enter Panicum town center. I wait for him to step off the coach before speaking. Do you need to swap places? I ask Pharrell. Why? Aren't you tired of Corporal Creep? A smile curves the corners of her lips. He's not that bad. All right. I raise a shoulder and glance out of the window as we approach a crowded town square and stop at the back of a marquee. Apart from the trees in the distance, this could be Ragosa. The door opens and the roar of the crowd fills the coach. As soon as 4 new harvester girls board, we head for the next town. I twist around, count the number of passengers, and close my eyes. 5 more towns before we can even begin to head to the oasis. Hours later, a bump in the road jolts me out of sleep. Sunlight seeps out from beyond the horizon, coloring the meadows. The black-haired guard stands in the aisle, chatting with Pharrell about his apprenticeship with the Guardians. From what I overhear, his name is Garrett. He's 17, the same age as Pharrell, and he must complete 3 months in uniform before progressing to his wanted vocation, medicine. That's how the Guardian echelon differs from ours. While harvesters must work the land or tend to livestock, Guardians can choose a range of professions. At the bottom are those who guard the border, and at the top are those who take care of Fangloria's infrastructure. Architects, engineers, scientists, and medics all count as Guardians, as well as the naval officers who safeguard the country from the turbulent seas beyond the Great Smoky Mountains. An orange haze seeps over the jagged, black horizon, which pales to yellow and turns green as it bleeds into the indigo sky. It's an hour before dawn, around the time we wake from Mondays to Saturdays. Sergeant Silvers strides down the aisle and places a gloved hand on Garrett's shoulder. Get to work, lover boy. Garrett grins and follows his companion to the front. The coach slows to a floodlit square where a subdued mass of harvesters awaits. I stretch and stifle a yawn, hoping that they hadn't been standing outside all night. What? Says Pharrell. My brows rise. What? Each time you wake, you glare at Garrett. A denial rushes to my lips, but I shake it off. Why are you even talking to him when you've got a chance to become the Queen of Fangloria? Everyone on this bus is here for show, she says. I've looked it up. Each Queen Regent has come from the nobles, or was a distant member of the royal family. Same thing. I clap my hand over my mouth to hide a wide yawn. Annoyance crosses her features. It's just a conversation. Garrett's different from the other guards. Really? My voice is flat, but Pharrell does have a point. Having a harvester queen would mean a fairer distribution of resources to those who need it the most. We would rather drink water than watch it spout prettily from a fountain. Emera sticks her head through the gap. You're right. Her pinched expression tells me she's still sore because her sister didn't get through to the next stage of the trials. Whatever she will say next will be a rant or a veiled insult. I glance out of the window at meadows that stretch for miles. The only thing growing on them are buttercups, which glow in the morning haze. "Neither of you have a chance of winning these trials," she whispers. "I doubt you'll even get into the palace." "Careful, Em," I say. "If you make a sour expression at dawn, it will stay on your face until sunset." Her eyes bulge, and she disappears into her seat. "I hope she isn't going to be like this in the oasis," whispers Pharrell. I hope she continues. "Why?" "The sooner they see what she's like, the sooner they'll send her home," I whisper back. Not everyone in Ragosa supports the Red Runners. Mom doesn't because she thinks the Harvester region is some kind of paradise, but there are a few who direct their animosity toward the other towns. If Panicum wins the water bonus, then they're the enemy. They're too small-minded to turn their anger to the one withholding the water. Emera reminds me of that type of person. 4 more Harvester girls join us, but they're different from the others. Their hair is glossier, their cheeks rounder, pinker, and they have a vitality I've only seen on guards. "Wow," says Pharrell. "Where are we?" I ask. "Bose." Ah, now it makes sense. These girls live close to the Cumberland Dam and handle livestock. Just like we're free to harvest seeds from fallen fruit, they must get a chance to consume some of the excess milk and offal. Moments later, the doors close, and Garrett returns to Pharrell's side. "You're awake?" He waggles his eyebrows at me. "Looking forward to meeting Prince Kevon?" "Looking forward to stretching my legs," I say in my sweetest voice. "How many stops until we reach the oasis?" "Bose was the last." Sergeant Silver drags Garrett to the front, and he glances over his shoulder and winks at Pharrell, who giggles. I slide further into my seat and rotate my ankles. Pharrell had only tried to stop that guard from harassing me, and now he won't leave her alone. Being pretty has its disadvantages, like becoming a magnet for unwanted attention. The coach drives down a highway and into what I can only describe as gloom. I've seen sandstorms, dust storms, and solar eclipses, but I've never seen fog. It's dense enough to blot the rising sun. Smokestacks twice as tall as the vast buildings spew gases into the sky. I clap a hand over my mouth to suppress a gasp. Around me, all the other Harvester girls are doing the same. This can only be the industrial region. Pharrell leans across my seat and peers out of the window. How can anyone live without clean air? The answer comes as we pass a troop of guards standing beneath bright floodlights. Below the usual face mask on their helmets are respirators, with 2 huge protruding filters on the left and right. They herd a group of shabbily dressed workers who tie kerchiefs around their noses and mouths. Some of them cover their faces with rags. "This is terrible," I whisper. "We may not have enough water, but at least we can breathe. As soon as I can get a message to Carolina, I will ask if the Red Runners extend to the industrial region. This place makes Ragosa look like heaven." We pass through this region, and the air clears, revealing the morning sun. We pass by a paved city consisting of large corrugated iron structures that remind me of storehouses. They last for another half hour before the coach stops again. Everybody groans. This is the longest I've sat in my life, and the oasis seems a lifetime away. "Roadblock," says Garrett from the aisle. "Excuse me, ladies." The door opens, and guards clad in black armor step into the coach, each clutching handheld monitors. "Show your bracelets," bellows the one in front. I stare down at the blinking device. Did they think one of us has counterfeited our way onto this coach? The guards scan the bracelets of the girls in front, scan ours, and then move to the girls sitting at the back. "Found one," says a triumphant voice from behind. "What?" I turn around. An ash-blonde Harvester girl shrieks as a guard hauls her out of the back seat. "What did I do?" They march her off the coach without explanation. As Sergeant Silver passes, I lean across and whisper, "Excuse me," What just happened? He frowns. Your Armstrong bracelets have been monitoring your health for hours. Some of the conditions it screens for take that much time to detect. Those guards found something that disqualifies her for entry into the oasis. What's going to happen to her? I ask. If it's curable, they will take her to an infirmary. The blonde guard excuses himself and walks to the front of the coach. Pharrell and I share a look. From the pain etched around her eyes, I can tell she's also wondering if the guards will take the easy route and make that girl disappear. After passing through swaths of countryside filled with deer, wild horses, herds of buffalo, and even lush forests, we pass through a meadow. By now the sun is halfway to its zenith, and it lights up a poppy field. It's a vivid array of red and purple that fills my heart. I release my joy in a wistful sigh. Nobody grows ornamental plants in the Harvester region. Dad's cacti soak up rain and wastewater through their shallow roots and store liquid in their stems. They're a source of nutrition, should life ever become dire. We drive toward a wall of interconnected domes that stand 4 times as high as the one in Ragosa Square and stretch out for miles. It's just like the pictures I saw projected at school, but until now, I hadn't realized the scale of the glass structures that surround the oasis. Pharrell clutches my arm. Is that? The botanical gardens, I whisper. Excited chatter explodes through the coach's subdued atmosphere as everyone leans to the window to take a better look. This is the source of every seed ever grown in Fangloria and the birthplace of our country. All thoughts of revolution tumble to the back of my mind. I wish we could stop and take a look. What I wouldn't give to spend the day in the gardens, says Pharrell with a sad sigh. Garrett appears at our side. I can take you. Pharrell's lips part and mine purse. Her mouth opens and closes as she seems to flounder for words. I hold my breath, waiting for her to respond, but she smiles and says, After the trials? Of course, he grins. I'll even show you my favorite spot. I turn to the window. Garrett has just acknowledged that no Harvester girl stands a chance with Prince Kevon. Not that it matters, as there will be no need for monarchs in the new democracy. An archway opens up between 2 of the domes, where there's another checkpoint. The guards scan our bracelets once more before letting us through. I glare at the glowing object, hoping it doesn't also monitor our locations. With all the sneaking about I'll be doing in the palace at night, I can't let myself get caught. Beyond the dome, a train emerges from the ground and speeds along a track. I follow its progress along swaths of meadows that lead to a forest. I shake my head and exhale an awed breath. Have you ever seen so many trees? Emera pokes her head through and glances from me to Pharrell. We have orchards in the Harvester region, you know. But these trees aren't growing in straight lines. I point at the wooded area. And they're all different. Her face softens. I didn't know land could be so beautiful. Yeah. I stare at a lake, whose surface shimmers in the morning sun. There's so much water just lying there, and no sign of any pumps. The oasis is green and lush and a perfect growing environment, but I can't see any crops. It's such a flagrant waste of resources. I press my head to the window, my gaze fixed on the distant city. Tall, pale buildings loom from the top of a distant hill. They sparkle in the gold sheen of the morning sun. Considering that the land outside Fangloria is a desert wasteland, I can understand why our capital city is called the Oasis. Emerald launches into a monologue about everything she wants to see during the trial, not giving Vitalot a chance to respond. I haven't seen the purple-haired girl since we boarded the coach, and I hope she hasn't crumbled under Emera's attention. Eventually the road leads to a street lined with trees that don't appear to grow anything apart from pink and red flowers. Behind the trees stand 7-story stone buildings with iron balconies. Is that where the nobles live? Asks Pharrell. I always imagined them in castles, I reply. The further the coach drives us into the city, the greener it becomes, until I feel like we're driving through a park from an old documentary. Lush green lawn covers the landscape, with the occasional fountain and flower bed. We pass hundreds of feet away from stone mansions, which I guess answers Pharrell's question. "Which one is the palace?" she asks. They all look like palaces to me, but none have the ostentatious fountain. The coach drives alongside a lake that seems to stretch into the horizon, and I bite down on my lip. How big is the oasis? Even driving at a slower rate, it appears larger than Ragosa. It's hard to tell, but I suspect the maps we learned in geography class aren't entirely accurate. We pass over a bridge that gives us another view of the city. Tall trees with dense foliage hide all the dwellings, but I suppose the architects have designed the oasis to offer maximum privacy and comfort for its inhabitants. On the other side of the bridge is a built-up area that reminds me a little of Ragosa Square, except that there's a river running through it, and ancient stone buildings with spires that curve around to a fountain far bigger and more wasteful than I could ever imagine. "Look at..." Pharrell's voice trails off, because there are no words to describe it. A stone Gaia stands on a podium in the middle with her arms outstretched. She's pregnant, with a crown of flowers. Around her, statues of people hold up offerings of water that cascade over the goddess. Sergeant Silver stands in the middle of the aisle. "Ladies of the harvest, thank you for your patience during this long journey, and welcome to the Oasis. Congratulations on passing the first round of the princess trials. We are approaching the Gloria Concert Hall for the televised auditions." Up ahead lies a large pond, with a bridge that leads to another stone building. This one is larger than the others in the oasis, with double-height floors and a round vaulted roof that reminds me of the Ragosa Dome. My throat dries, and I no longer want to get off the coach. In all my 16 years, I've only seen guards and other harvesters. Everyone here wears different colors and styles, and it's a level of freedom I've only seen in Sunday movies played on Oasis Vision. A band of panic tightens around my chest, cutting my air supply to the shallowest breaths. The Oasis is too noisy, too bright, too violent. If I step off this vehicle, I might crumble under the newness of this world. Chapter 7. The coach stops outside the concert hall, and there's another red carpet that stretches up its stone steps. Everyone sighs with relief, and we all form a line down the aisle. Emira pushes in front of us, and I roll my eyes. She can't continue blaming me for her sister's rejection. Sergeant Silver and Garrett are the first to step out. They stand at both sides of the door, a buffer to the madness outside. People holding cameras gather on both sides of the red carpet. Their flashes fill my sight, and it's worse than the summer lightning storm that once burned down Dad's cornfield. They shout out our names, and I imagine that they already broadcasted our details all over Fangloria, but it's hard to do anything with my vision dazzled and my legs aching from the long ride. I imagined there would be a crowd of people awaiting us in a stark and modern interior like the Ragosa Square Dome, but this is like an entrance hall from the old world. It's the size of 16 harvester homes and 8 times as high. A marble floor stretches out to a grand staircase as wide as our house, with over 24 steps and a landing that splits into 2 separate staircases. Flanking the stairs stand twin statues of Gaia, each balancing the Fangloria tree on their outstretched palms. I glance at the lights shining at the end of every branch, and can't help thinking about us having to travel through the dark after sundown. The girls spread out, all turning their heads up and to the left and right to take in the stone columns that stretched to a ceiling consisted of arched cornices and carved moldings. I only know these words because Mom is obsessed with anything related to fairy tales, including castles. Gasping, Pharrell places a hand on her chest. "It's breathtaking, yeah," I whisper. A side door hidden within the stone wall opens, and a woman wearing a teal catsuit scurries out. She glances at her computer tablet before saying, "This way, girls." She leads us into a dim hallway, which isn't quite as grand as the entrance hall, but looks better than anything from home. The floors here creak underfoot, and the scent of applewood fills my nostrils. Lights blaze out from an open door at the end of the passage, and my stomach rumbles. "Was that you?" Pharrell asks with a giggle. I rub my belly. It's strange to feel hungry after sitting around all night. "A light breakfast is available in the green room," says the woman. We step into a waiting room with groups of comfortable-looking black sofas arranged in U-shapes around low tables. Each holds a vast platter of fruit, sliced cheese, meat, and toast. My mouth waters at the banquet that would keep my family fed for days. "Everybody sit and eat," the woman says. "The show starts in an hour, and our co-hosts will join you momentarily and record profiles on the most promising candidates. Please cooperate to give yourself the best chance of winning." There are more than enough tables for each town to occupy a section, and Emira marches to the nearest sofa and plucks a piece of toast from the tray. Pharrell, Vitalot, and I follow her and fill our plates. Vitalot points at a slice of pink meat. "What's that?" My brows draw together. "Ham, I think." An arrogant voice behind us snorts. "Beef carpaccio. Don't you vegetables know anything?" I twist around and glare at the owner of the voice, one of the fresh-faced girls from Bose. "We don't get delicacies in Ragosa." Her gaze wanders down to my modest chest. "Clearly, you don't." Fury surges through my insides, and something Carolina said reaches my ears. The nobles design daily quotas that make us compete against each other for rations for maximum rivalry. They want us too busy fighting each other to band together and revolt. All resentment drains from my system in an outward breath, and I say, "We'd appreciate an introduction to all these meats. Do you cure them yourselves?" Her face drops, and she glances at the other girls from her town as if looking for reassurance. They're too busy enjoying the banquet to engage in hostilities. "Sure." She walks around and introduces herself as Cori Barzona. Applause fills the room, the far wall turns black, and the Fangloria insignia appears. The national anthem blares out, and the screen fades to an orchestra. Its conductor and musicians wear the black and white of artisans, the echelon valued for their ability to create beauty. The camera cuts to Montana, who wears an electric blue tuxedo coat with tails that sweep on the stage floor. Instead of a shirt and bow tie, he dons a black one-piece outfit with blue buttons that match his coat. He stands with his arms spread and bobs his head along with the orchestra as though it's the most moving piece of music he's ever heard. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen," he says over the fading strains of the music. "A round of applause for Her Majesty, Queen Damascena, and His Excellency, Ambassador Pascal of Armstrad." Now the screen shows the Queen sitting in a royal box, clad in an ivory dress that clings to her figure. Its asymmetric neckline wraps around her collar like a snake. She wears a diamond crown with drop earrings. Next to her sits the ambassador, a small man with a weak chin and round spectacles that dangle over the bridge of his long nose. The glass picks up the light with a rippling effect. I don't know enough about technology to work out what that means. He's the first Armstradi I have ever seen, and wears a leather jacket with buttons running up his torso in a diagonal line. It's secured with a tight leather neckband, adorned by a row of flashing lights that make me wonder if the jacket is the one that's actually alive and the ambassador is the garment. Two women dressed in teal catsuits stand behind them, along with a pair of guards whose uniforms look metallic. They probably also came from the Armstrad Republic. Pharrell leans into my side and whispers, "Where's Prince Kevon?" I raise a shoulder. The king is also missing from the royal box. Maybe he's one of the judges? Montana appears back on the screen. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the harvester round of the princess trials." He explains that 60 girls made it to the auditorium, and today a lucky 6 will be chosen based on beauty, poise, intelligence, and charm. I wipe my damp palms on my skirt and glance around the room. The other girls look pale and tired and nervous, like me. Few of us take long-distance journeys, and if they had given us a day to acclimatize, we might be in better spirits. As Montana reminisces with the audience about the previous princess trials, a group of people wearing purple uniforms enters with trolleys, filling the room with the mingled scents of tea and coffee. My mouth waters, and I take a bite of fruit toast with butter and cheese. Pharrell gasps and points at the screen. "There's Princess Briar!" My head snaps up. The last time we saw Prince Kevon's older sister was at the royal wedding 5 years ago, when she married the son of the Armstradi president. She sits on the judge's table, clad in a high-necked leather dress, whose collar flashes on and off with those creepy lights. To the princess's left sits Cersei Astor, the Queen's lady-at-arms, and on her right is Prunella Broadleaf. I suppress a groan. That's the woman who ignored Carolina, only to pay attention when someone else voiced her suggestion. Hopefully she won't be nearly as dismissive with the Harvester girls when we're on stage. An assistant rushes into the room. "Corey Barzona, you're next." The girl from Bose stands and smooths down her outfit. It's the same as mine, except she fills it better, and it contains fewer stains. "Good luck," I whisper, along with everyone else. Corey nods, straightens her back, and walks out with the assistant. Silence descends through the room, as Montana attempts to chat with Princess Briar about her life in Armstrad. She offers one-word answers, making smooth conversation near impossible. He turns to Lady Cersei, but the dark-skinned woman is too busy reading her tablet computer to engage in conversation. Prunella Broadleaf gushes that she's honored to help choose the next Queen of Fangloria. Pharrell leans into me and whispers, "Isn't that Prince Kevon's job?" "Probably," I mutter through a mouthful of apricot pastry. Sugar and fruit and spices explode on my tongue, and I hum my appreciation. It's sweet and fatty and juicy. I wash it down with a mouthful of freshly brewed coffee and sigh. If harvesters ate and drank like this every day, we'd be too sated to revolt. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen." Corey jogs on stage and waves, and the crowd bursts into applause. "My name is Corey Barzona, and it's wonderful to meet you all." Prunella Broadleaf leans forward, resting her chin on her hand. "What do you do?" "I'm a milkmaid," Corey answers with a dazzling smile. "And I'm a proud maker of artisan cheese, cream, yogurt, and butter." This makes the audience cheer. I lean into my seat and groan, trying to think up something endearing to say. Pharrell picks tomatoes, but I'm just a weeder. Emera bolts out of her seat. "I'm going to the bathroom." Throughout Corey's exchange with Prunella Broadleaf, Lady Cersei reads from her tablet computer, and Princess Briar stares ahead with glazed eyes. If she has been here since Monday, I'm not surprised she's bored. "Excuse me, ladies." A man holding a microphone approaches our table. Behind him stand 2 women with cameras. "May I interrupt your breakfast for a chat?" Pharrell straightens, and her face splits into a wide grin. "Sure." He focuses on Pharrell and asks her about life in Ragosa. After several minutes of conversation, it's clear that he isn't going to speak to anyone else around our table. I glance at Vitalot, who grimaces. One of the camera women steps forward and makes eye contact. "Excuse me." Excitement fills my chest, and I offer what I hope is a dazzling smile. "Yes? Could you move across to the other sofa so that I could get a better shot of your pretty friend?" My breath hitches, and I cover my disappointment by scooting around toward where Vitalot sits. The other girl shrugs and picks up a braided pastry. It's strange. Until now, I didn't care about being the darling of the camera. I was anonymous, and beneath the notice of anyone but my family and the occasional belligerent guard. Rice and Carolina's praise was addictive. Somewhere, in the depths of my heart, a part of me believes that Rice might fall in love with me if I'm on camera. A server in red approaches with a coffee pot and a jug of cream. I pick up my cup and give her an eager nod. I came here with my friend. Pharrell sweeps her arm in my direction. Her name is Zia. One of the cameras turns to me, and I inhale a shocked breath through my teeth. How nice of you to come along for moral support. The co-host finally makes eye contact. What do you think of a possible Queen Pharrell? His implication hits me like a punch to the gut. I don't have a chance in this contest of even making it to the palace round. He isn't even acknowledging me as a possible candidate, even though I was one of the few who made it through that awful marquee. But he's asked me a question on camera, and I have to answer. Fangloria will benefit from a kind and compassionate person like Pharrell as its queen. He turns back to Pharrell, and my heart sinks. I might have held his attention if I'd said something witty, but charisma isn't one of my strengths. Zia would make a great queen, says Pharrell. She's caring and brave. How charming. The co-host turns to the front camera. Did you see that, ladies and gentlemen? Generosity and humility in a beautiful harvester package. Thank you, Pharrell Pyrus. The interviewer and the camera women rise and approach another bank of sofas. He casts a dismissive glance at the quartet from Panicum and moves on to some better-dressed girls, who I imagine come from one of the towns centered on animal husbandry. That was demoralizing, mumbles Vitalot. Yeah, I reply. Emira flounces across the room, her cheeks flushing purple to contrast with her flaxen hair. How did you get an interview? What are you talking about? I say. Ignoring me, Emira curls her fists. You were flirting with that interviewer, just like you flirted with that guard. What? Hisses Pharrell. You have a reputation in Ragosa. She places her hands on her hips. Do you want me to share it with all of Fangloria? Pharrell's mouth drops open, and I suck in a sharp breath through my teeth. This has to be a lie. I turn around and find a camera trained on us. When I turn back, Emira's eyes gleam with triumph. Emira, I snap. We're on camera. Her mouth widens into a smile. Prince Kevon should know. The co-host ditches the girl he was interviewing to rush at Emira with a camerawoman at his heels. Miss? My name is Emira Hull. She rocks forward on her heels and grins. I'm from Ragosa, where I live with my mother, father, and 4 sisters. What were you going to say about this girl? He asks. I would make a brilliant queen because I want to feed the whole of Fangloria. Working in the cornfields has taught me a lot about life. Oh my Gaia, mutters Pharrell. I shake my head. She just caused a dust storm to get on camera. Vitalot leans forward. The Hull sisters do this all the time. You know them? Pharrell asks. Vitalot nods and doesn't elaborate, but my head pounds and my pulse feels jittery from overindulging in coffee. I stagger to my feet and walk around Pharrell, muttering something about needing to wash my face. I exit via another door, which I hope leads to a bathroom. Instead, it opens into a stone hallway with an Oasis Vision screen on the wall. One of the Harvester girls just burst into tears on stage, and her words are so garbled with sobs that I can't make sense of what she's saying. Walking out already? Says a voice. I turn to find Sergeant Silver leaning against a wall. His helmet lies on the floor by his feet. I need some air. Contestants aren't allowed to leave the concert hall, he says. My shoulders droop, and I glance over his shoulder where the sound of applause resounds from behind a set of double doors. Is there an open window somewhere? Don't like to be cooped up, he asks. That's for chickens. He chuckles, revealing a dimple on his cheek. I can open a back door, but you must promise not to escape. Would I get far if I did? Probably not. He sweeps out an arm, gesturing at me to walk with him. Normally I wouldn't go anywhere with a guard unless it was an ambush in my favor, but Sergeant Silver doesn't seem the type to shirk his duties and harass girls. He was polite to everyone on the coach except to Garrett when he was slacking. He leads me to another wooden door and opens it, revealing a balcony that overlooks the lake. Waves lap at the building's stone walls, and the scent of wet earth and mown grass fills my nostrils. Thank you. I rush out to the balcony, filling my lungs with cool, fresh air. Don't jump, he says as I pass. Snorting, I stare out into the water. I'll try to control myself. What do you think of the oasis? He asks. Inhaling a deep breath, I think about his question, but there's no easy answer. Before I came here, the oasis was the epicenter of oppression, a symbol of everything I hated about my life. I wanted it reduced to rubble so we could build a new democracy on its remains. But now, a pair of fish the size of my forearm swim past. One has crimson and blue scales with large flowing fins that swirl with the current. Its companion's scales are a deep plum with vivid amber fins. Their beauty makes my throat thicken with an emotion I can't yet name. Without looking at the guard, I murmur, if only more harvesters got a chance to appreciate such splendor. I got to see most of the region while collecting you girls from all 16 towns, he says. There were orchards, wheat fields, vast meadows. Some would envy the peace of the harvesters, but not the toil and thirst. The words tumble from my lips before I can stop them, and I spin around, my heart pounding. That was sedition, and I just said it in front of a guard. The door behind him is shut, and there's no way around his large 6'2" frame. My fingers twitch to the darts in my pocket, but I curl them into a fist. The Red Runners taught me a little hand-to-hand combat, but I'm not strong enough to go against a grown man. He tilts his head to the side, and his strange eyes narrow with scrutiny. May I ask you a question? Sure. My voice rasps, and I press my spine against the balcony's stone wall. Why did you join the trials? The lie tumbles from my lips. For the opportunity to marry Prince Kevon. What about him makes you think he could be good for you? My chest loosens, and a breath whooshes from my lungs. Sergeant Silver is just curious, nothing more. Turning my head, I bite down on my lip and stare into the pond. Sunlight bounces off the water's surface, and it's mesmerizing, just like rice wintergreen. Until yesterday, Rice hasn't given me the opportunity to know him, but I can't help the way I feel. I turn back to the guard, who stares at me with a strange intensity. He looks about 18, but he could be older. I wonder if he's like Garrett, who wants to do something else in the Guardian Echelon, or if this is his permanent role. You want to know why I really signed up? I ask. He nods. Sometimes you can see a person from afar and know how they feel, I say, remembering the day Dad brought me to the Wintergreen home and Rice's reaction to my failure to save his father. Rice barely looked at me over the following years, but his tragic story gripped my heart. He turned devastation to determination, and when Carolina appointed him the leader of a Red Runner's cell, I couldn't help but join. You see their struggles, their strengths, and their triumphs. My heart fills with inspiration, and I straighten. He carries the troubles of Fangloria on his shoulders because he's going to lead. I would like to be the person at his side who helps carry his burden. Can anyone be that selfless? He asks. I meet the guard's green eyes. This is an opportunity for my happiness, too. I'm not sure about my chances, but if I don't try, it's something I will regret forever. And the status doesn't hurt? A wry smile curves his lips. His words snap me back to reality. An annoyance prickles my skin that I've opened my heart to a guard. Do you know what I long for every day? Tell me, he says. Water. He frowns. What? Have you ever worked in the Harvester region? He shakes his head. My apprenticeship took me to the border. Afterward, I worked in the Navy. My brows draw together. What is it like outside? The desert? He asks. I nod. There are towers at the wall where you can view the wilderness for miles. He fixes me with solemn eyes. Some of the images of the land outside the desert are beyond description. I'm amazed that people survive that hell and reach the gates. My mind drifts to Mom, whose parents traveled across the desert to reach Fangloria. She never talks about the hardship she experienced in the Barrens, or about what she might have seen at the wall, so it's fascinating to hear Sergeant Silver's account. Do the guards ever turn people away? I ask. Sergeant Silver shakes his head. Nobody civilized is denied shelter, no matter their physical state. He draws in a deep breath. I have the utmost admiration for anyone determined enough to cross such a hostile environment to reach Fangloria. My gaze turns to the ripples of water. There are two types of people who make it to the Great Wall. The first is foundlings, like Mom's parents, and the man with the jawless mouth working in Carolina's underground hideout. The second are humans who have regressed to a feral state, who we refer to as wild men. From what I learned in modern history classes, they don't have a language, but they can create tools and weapons, and will eat anything, including their own kind. What's it like to live in the most tranquil region within Fangloria? Sergeant Silver asks. We don't have lakes, or ponds, or even streams. Everything is piped from the oasis. I sweep out a hand over our surroundings. You say the Harvester region is beautiful, but there's only enough water for crops. Everyone gets the government-recommended allowance, but I've never swum in fresh water or soaked in a private bath. His brows rise, but he doesn't comment. Maybe it's because he thinks I'm hankering over something trivial, but I would like to see him swap his fruit-infused smoky water for the metallic-tasting liquid we get at home. What would make me happiest is a better future for everyone in Fangloria. I think we can make this a reality together. He blows out a breath. Prince Kevin is a lucky fellow to have such a committed admirer. My bracelet beeps, jolting me out of my musings. What's that? You're wanted on stage. Sergeant Silver opens the door. I'll show you the way. Chapter 8. We rush through a darkened hallway at the end of which stand two women with headphones attached to screens on their heads. They are fussing around a petite harvester girl, fluffing up her hair and telling her to take deep breaths. Good, says Sergeant Silver. It looks like you're still on time. They both turn around. The red lights hanging over the door marked stage makes their frowns appear like scowls, and the harvester girl looks pale enough to faint. Where have you been? One of them hisses. We had to arrange an early interval because you weren't in place. Sorry, I mutter. The lights turn green and she spins away, not giving me a chance to muster up an excuse. I turn to thank the guard, but he's already gone. One of the stagehands places both hands on the girl's shoulders. You saw the previous girls? Follow Montana's leads, be polite to the judges, and smile. She nods, and her face hardens with determination. The door opens, and she walks through to a round of lackluster applause. I'm not sure how many girls the audience has seen already. Fatigue and nerves and the unfamiliar surroundings have pushed my sense of time off kilter, but I suspect they're tired of seeing different girls wearing the same outfits and talking about producing food. The taller of the stagehands turns to me. She's a stern-faced woman with iridescent violet eyes that catch the light. Watch carefully. After the break, you're next. Gulping hard, I nod. She projects Oasis vision onto the wall, but there's no sound. The harvester girl is blinking rapidly and has stretched out a palm, the way some people do when they're trying to look in the distance when the sun is too harsh. I make a mental note to keep my hands at my sides. Montana is his usual chatty self, but the panel of judges seems bored. It's probably because they know that the harvester portion of the princess trials won't lead to anything but false hope for our echelon. I imagine everyone huddled around Ragosa Square, watching out for the four of us, and my heart aches. What are Mom and Dad doing now? Are they worrying about me? I suck in a long breath, and hope he will one day understand I joined these trials for a larger purpose. Prunella Broadleaf appears back on screen. She leans forward, with her fingers steepled, and stares into the camera with narrowed eyes. Next, the camera switches to the girl, whose mouth drops open. What are they saying? Prue's having a little fun with the girls, replies the stagehand. I glance at her headphones. Can I listen? Her face twists with disgust, and she steps away from me as though I've proposed something indecent. The harvester girl gives the judges a sharp nod and takes several steps back. I lean forward and frown, wondering what on earth she is doing. Then she takes a running jump, stretches out her arms, and performs one cartwheel after another. Applause seeps through the stage doors, and a boulder of dread drops into my stomach. I lean against the wall and stare at the screen. She's dancing, I whisper. Someone has to break up the monotony, the stagehand mutters. Tremors make the ends of my fingers vibrate, and I curl them into fists. The judges could at least make it look like they took us seriously. Did the noble girls have to perform? Her colleague's lips tighten, and she looks at me as though I'm something that has soaked through the sole of her espadrilles. When one is educated and poised, it's enough to entertain the crowd with wit. My stomach churns, and my heart pounds so hard I forget to flinch. I can't dance, or sing, or recite poems, but I have a good eye, and I'm accurate with distance weapons. But I won't reveal the blowgun in my pocket, or the poisoned darts. I'll just have to refuse if Prunella Broadleaf asks me to amuse those nobles. The harvester girl skips around the stage, kicking her legs up and treating the audience to a view of her ankles and calves. I shake my head and feel bad for her parents, who must be horrified at the display of flesh. I won't perform. I won't make a national fool of myself for Mom, Dad, and the twins to watch on Oasis Vision. You better start thinking of something interesting to win the audience's vote, says the stagehand who projects the image. This girl is winning everyone's hearts. Will dancing like that help me become the Queen of Fangloria? I ask through clenched teeth. No, but it will get you to the palace round, she replies. You might even meet someone special at one of the balls. The mention of the palace round strengthens my resolve. Public humiliation is a small sacrifice to complete my mission. When the revolution comes, the nobles' cheers will turn to screams. They'll want to dance jigs for our amusement. My shoulders slump, and I run trembling fingers through my hair. I still don't have a talent I can share with the audience. The shorter stagehand places a hand on my brow. You're clammy. I am? She places her fingers on my pulse. Are you going to faint on us? No. Are you prone to swooning? She asks. Swoon? My brows furrow. I've had enough water, if that's what you're asking. Drink more. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out a water bottle. What is it? She twists the lid with a crack of its seal and places the bottle to my lips. Smoky-free. I rear back and glance at the mountains on its label. Smoky water? You get that in the Harvester District? She asks. On the coach. My fingers wrap around the bottle and I take a sip. Soft moisture floods my dry mouth. It reminds me of being young, tilting my head to the skies and welcoming the first drops of rain on my tongue. There's no flavor to this water, yet it's the best I have ever tasted. I gulp down mouthfuls and squeeze my eyes shut. For this blissful moment, there's no princess trials, no Oasis Vision cameras, no audience of nobles baying for me to perform acrobatics. It's just me, this water, and the hope that I'll provide Carolina with vital intelligence that starts the revolution. When it's over, Rice and I will take our places together in the new democracy, and he'll remember me as the girl who brought him peace. I swallow the last drops of water and exhale a long, satisfied breath. Thanks. Feeling better? Asks the stagehand with a grin. Much. By now, the Fangloria emblem is on screen, and the co-host from earlier broadcasts from the waiting room. He's standing with the harvester girl who just did the cartwheels, and she's looking dazed. You drank double the amount as the last girl, she says. Huh? I stare at the bottle. but my vision blurs. I can't see. Oh dear, she says. What? You're one of the 0.25% who react badly to free. To water? No, she snaps. Free is a stimulant that releases inhibitions. It's to stop girls from freezing on stage. My heart cartwheels with panic, and I clutch at my chest. Violent palpitations vibrate against my palm. You drugged me? She places both hands on my shoulders. Stop panicking. It will only make things worse. My throat closes up, choking off my words, and I stare up at the stagehand with bulging eyes. Strong hands push me down, so I'm bent over double. One of the stagehands thumps my back, and I cough out a breath. My vision clears a little, and I fill my lungs, but the moment I raise my head, my vision swims, and it feels like my brain has turned to clouds. It takes several minutes of heavy breathing to clear the lightheadedness, and when I glare up at the stagehand, I can see her wide eyes. How could you? When you joined the princess trials, you agreed to medical procedures, including taking supplements for your well-being and health. Didn't you read the small print? I had pressed my palm on a blank screen, but that had been for identification purposes. There hadn't been any talk of drugs. They skipped over that part. It's done now. The stagehand helps me straighten. Deep breaths. It's almost time for your grand debut. Has it worn off? I ask. The side effects? She tilts her head to the side. Sure. The door opens, and before I have the chance to clarify that I had been talking about the mountain free, her companion places a hand between my shoulder blades and shoves me into blinding white light. Ladies and gentlemen, Montana's voice sounds like a drum roll. Her Majesty and His Excellency, please welcome our next contestant. My retinas sting. I don't know if the stage lights are particularly bright or whatever was in the free water has made me light sensitive, but I won't raise my hand like the other girl. Applause fills my ears as I step forward. It's like walking into the sun, and I can't stop blinking. The stage is hotter than I imagined, and tiny beads of sweat form on my skin. The applause fades, and I continue walking on legs that won't stop shaking. I can't see Montana, the judges' table, or any cameras, but I know from watching in the screens that they're trained on me and broadcasting this moment to everyone in Fangloria. Where are you going? A pair of large hands grab my shoulders and turn me 90 degrees to the left. We're over here. The audience laughs. My heart sinks. 10 seconds on stage, and I'm already a laughingstock. Hell. My throat catches, and I cough into my hand. Hello, Fangloria! A few people in the audience clap, but when nobody else joins them, they stop. My throat dries, and I blink through watery eyes. My vision clears. The orchestra sits one level below the stage, each member clutching a shiny instrument. Behind them are levels upon levels of raised seating platforms that stretch out 1/8 of a mile. There's 100 or more, but I'm too nervous to count. Balconies lit by candelabra wall sconces fill the curved walls, and they're crammed with silhouetted figures. In the middle is the curtained arch that makes up the royal box. It feels like every single one of Fangloria's 5,000 nobles is sitting in the audience, which makes sense, considering that they don't actually do any of the work. What's your name, my dear, and where are you from? Says Prunella Broadleaf. I turn to the judges' table on my right. My vision clears a little more, and I can tell that the dark figure on the far left is Lady Cersei. The one on the far right must be Prunella. Zia Mays Calico, mistress, I say. And I come from Mergosa and work in the tomato fields. Someone barks out a laugh, and I know why. Most harvester names are crop-related, and we're the largest grower of corn in Fangloria. Mom fell in love with the Latin name for corn and thought it would be great to name me after the field where she met Dad. Before I can stop myself, the story tumbles from my lips. The audience coos, and my cheeks heat. That information had been personal, and not fodder for the amusement of a bunch of idle nobles. Lady Cersei clears her throat. Your juvenile record is interesting. You were whipped at the age of 12 and 14 for assaulting guards with... She pauses, as though not believing what she sees. A slingshot? I gulp, and the crowd whispers. Why would she dredge up my past to the whole of Fangloria? My gaze darts to the audience, who is waiting for my reply. They were attacking Harvester girls. The words tumble from my mouth. I wanted them to stop. A hush falls across the auditorium, and the only sound is the pulse pounding between my ears. This is nothing like the warm applause they gave Cory Barzona from Bose, or the amused cheers they offered to the cartwheeling girl. If I don't do something now, Lady Cersei will turn the voters against me. I square my shoulders and say, Juvenile records are supposed to be erased when a person comes of age. I've matured since then. The dark-skinned woman leans forward and drawls, Indeed? I offer an eager nod. What would you do now if you saw a guard attacking a girl? She asks. My teeth clamp shut. If that stupid drug makes me blurt out the events of yesterday, I will end up in a cell with poor Crim. Pharrell and everyone else who covered up for my criminal act would join me. I breathe hard, forcing my survival instinct to overcome my lack of inhibitions. I would ask them to stop. But isn't the bigger problem, and if he didn't, Lady Cersei asks, then I would call another guard to help. Laughter fills the auditorium, and my head pounds to the beat of a war drum. I have no clue why they thought that was funny. Anyone intervening with a guard's fun gets threatened or attacked or killed, like Mr. Wintergreen. Calling a second guard would only double the girl's suffering, but there's no other solution I can offer that won't label me as rebellious. Zia Mays is right, says Princess Briar, sounding bored. Juvenile records have no bearing on the princess trials. A relieved breath slides from between my lips, and I send the princess a silent word of thanks. Then let's move to genetic background, drawls Lady Cersei. Your mother is a foundling? Her words land like a kick to the gut, and I flinch. Blood roars through my ears, and the pounding in my head is louder than the audience's gasping disapproval. Nobody. I don't care if they are Harvester, Guard, or Prince Kevon himself. Nobody mocks Mom. Second generation, I snap back, all notions of self-preservation evaporating in the heat of my fury. She was born in Fangloria and moved out of the Barrens after passing the genetic acceptability test. The audience grumbles. Everyone is probably picturing the type of people so misshapen by genetic abnormalities that they barely look human, or the tribes of cannibalistic wild men that attack our borders. Foundlings aren't anything like that. Border guards only allow those who look sane and rational through the Great Wall. And foundlings have to stay in the Barrens for decades, and sometimes generations, until they test free of radiation. Most of them never progress to the Harvester region, but their offspring might, if they're genetically pure. Dear me, Prunella Broadleaf places a handkerchief to her face, reminding me of the industrials protecting themselves from the smog. Does she have 6 feet? Webbed toes? The audience roars with mocking laughter, and Princess Briar huffs out an exasperated breath while Prunella smirks. Lady Cersei shakes her head and returns to reading her computer tablet. The pressure pounding through my skull explodes. Mistress Broadleaf, I say in my snippiest voice. Are you suggesting the Guardian's security measures are inadequate? She stiffens. Of course not. By now my vision clears completely, and I see the woman. Prunella Broadleaf's features consist of a pointed nose, hard eyes, and pinched lips, all set within a broad face. She's twisted them in a mockery of disapproval, but her throat bobs up and down, revealing her discomfort. Her black hair dye doesn't quite match the blue-black sheen that comes with Princess Briar's noble birth. Prunella Broadleaf is a social climber, desperate to ingratiate herself with the elite. Disgust at her pathetic mockery makes my lip curl. Any foundling allowed into the echelons has passed the genetic acceptability test, which is more than I can say about you. Prunella bristles, baring clenched teeth, but I don't care. Mom is the same as everyone else. Better, because she is certifiably free of defects. Better, because she worked herself out of the barrens, educated herself on a variety of subjects, and passed on that knowledge to us. How many of the people laughing at me could make the same claim? Miss Calico, you're dismissed, says Prunella. Hostility crackles in the air. Montana steps back, his palms raised, acting as though he has no part in this situation. I've ruined my chances of ever getting through to the palace round of the trials. It hadn't bothered me that the contest was rigged in favor of the nobles, and that its organizers only brought us here for some sick sense of entertainment. But there's something I need to say before being sent back to Ragosa in disgrace. Before I leave, I have a question. Prunella Broadleaf beckons, and a pair of security guards step on stage. Unfortunately, neither of them look like Garrett or Sergeant Silver. We aren't interested in a parting rant, says Prunella. Get out with a modicum of dignity. What was the point of bringing me here if you already knew my juvenile record and genetic background? I shout. Prunella holds up a hand, and the guards stop. What are you suggesting? We went through extensive and painful testing yesterday, endured a long coach ride, and for what? To make us perform like circus lizards for your amusement? A few people in the audience boo. I turn to them and snarl. We work hard to supply you with food. The least you can offer in return is respect. Something small and dark flies out from the audience. I sidestep, and a tomato splats onto the stage. It explodes into a starburst with flesh oozing onto the white floor. This is the final insult. The fruits of harvester labor, wasted at my feet. Nobody moves. Not even the guards sent to drag me away. Whoever threw this wants me to rant some more, and something deep inside me shuts down. My mission has failed, and I won't entertain these nobles for a moment longer. I pick up the tomato's remains. Thanks for the seeds. Prunella Broadleaf approaches from across the stage, holding a pitcher of water. Let's cool this young lady down. My vision turns red. Before I can stop myself, the squashed tomato flies through the air and lands between her eyes. Prunella shrieks, clutches her face, and twists around. Roars fill my ear. By now I'm too frazzled to tell if it's laughter, or outrage, or demands for my flogging. Rough hands grab my arms, and a guard hauls me off the stage. I don't resist. I catch sight of Montana, who looks down at me with disapproval in his dark eyes. If he didn't want a spectacle, he shouldn't have let his stage hands feed the girl's anti-inhibition drugs. Wait! A male voice booms from the speakers, and the guard pauses. Montana steps forward. Do you have something to add, Your Excellency? The Armstrad ambassador rises from his seat and stands at the edge of the royal box. I have not laughed so much in decades. I'm glad you found Miss Calico amusing, Your Excellency, replies Montana, his voice unusually guarded. I will see more of this girl, says the strange man. Please forward her to the palace round. My mouth drops open, and a huff of air escapes my throat. If I could get to the palace and find those secret entryways, I still might bring about the revolution, and Rice might forgive my outburst. Montana frowns. Your Excellency, I will sponsor a troupe of girls for the trial's entertainment. The ambassador counts on his fingers. 100 new health monitors, to have this girl as the bucking bronco, and that big brute who gate crashed will be the underdog? His face splits into a wide grin. And Gemini Pixel, the scapegoat. Cheers fill the auditorium, and I glance around the stage. Lady Cersei stares straight at me, but I can't make out her expression. Princess Briar bows her head, and Prunella Broadleaf beams. Everyone but me seems to understand these terms. What is a bucking bronco? Nobody can hear me because they've cut my microphone. The guard clamps a hand around my bicep and pulls me off stage. Bucking bronco, underdog, scapegoat. I know the definition of these terms, and only one of them is good. But what on earth do they mean for the princess trials? Chapter 9. Laughter rings in my ears as the guards march me through a set of doors, and my head pounds in time with my heart's frantic beat. As soon as the door slams shut, the relative silence of the hallway clears my head, and regret crushes my chest. I should never have trusted those stagehands with that smoky water bottle. Rice would be disappointed with my performance. If it hadn't been for the ambassador's last-minute request, I would be tied to a whipping post and lashed for attacking Prunella Broadleaf with a tomato. What's happening? I say to the guard who clutches my arm. His lack of answer makes my heart sink, but the free still running through my veins causes me to blurt, "Have they cut your tongue?" He glares down at me through his visor and snorts. I'm going to enjoy watching you act the bronco. What's a bronco? The guard stares straight ahead. He's probably enjoying my turmoil, considering that I have a record for assaulting 2 of his colleagues. 3, but I'm not about to blurt that out. At the end of the hallway is another set of doors, which leads to the seats where I found Sergeant Silver. The chairs are empty, but Oasis Vision blares out from the screen. Montana has already introduced the next girl, and the audience reverts to its lackluster applause. It's stupid, but annoyance plucks at my nerves that I made such an insignificant impact on those nobles. Are you taking me to the palace? Hope fills my chest and lightens my voice. I might have disgraced my family, but I'm one step closer to fulfilling my mission. I've got your royal chambers right here, Bronco. His colleague opens the door to a white room. It's empty, apart from a wooden bench and the wall that broadcasts a harvester girl who looks like she's going to faint. With all the dignity I can muster, I walk into the room and take a seat. There's no point in asking questions or pleading. I'm exactly where I need to be. I rest my head on the wall and stare at the screen. Prunella Broadleaf is the only person acknowledging the girl. Someone has cleaned her face of tomato, but the olive makeup thins around her forehead and eyes, revealing her naturally pale skin. The harvester girl on screen is pretty, with wavy brown hair and bright eyes the color of hazelnuts. There's no sound, so I can't hear what Prunella is asking her, but the girl's eyes dart to the audience, and she smooths down her dress. My gaze drops to my crumpled skirt. It's as though they wanted us to look our worst for the trials. I wish I had ventured out to Ragosa Square at least once this week, instead of staying in to play with Sharky and her chicks. The girl on screen tightens her face and her bottom lip wobbles. She's trying not to cry, and I ache to know what Prunella said. If my mission succeeds, I want to blow a poisoned dart right where I smacked her with the tomato. "Wait there," says a gruff voice at the door. A girl with pale blonde hair steps inside. I can't see her face because she's bowing her head. Behind her the doors close, but she doesn't sit. She is wearing a white cotton nightgown that trails around her ankles. "Hello?" I say. She raises her head, revealing eyes puffy and bloodshot from days of crying. "Are you all right?" The girl doesn't answer. "Do you want to sit down?" Still no response. My shoulders droop. What's wrong with her? I ask her a bunch of questions. I try prompting her to speak by asking her name, where she lives, and if she's in the trials. But she sinks to her knees, and sobs. Sorry. I scoot over the row of chairs. Was I asking too much? She crouches on all fours, resting her cheek on the stone floor between her flat palms. It's the strangest sight I've ever seen, and she reminds me of an old widow who once stumbled into Ragosa Square one Sunday, so delirious with thirst that she lay on the hot paving stones. I kneel at her side, stroking pale strands of nearly white hair off her face. Apart from the deathly pallor of her skin, the swollen red eyes, and her pink nose, she appears unhurt. "Who are you?" I whisper. Moments later, the door opens and the largest girl I have ever seen enters. She's as tall and broad-shouldered as the guards, except that they are wearing armor and she is wearing a long black dress. Freckles sprinkle on her nose and cheeks, but that's the extent of her cuteness. The girl turns to the guard. "Thanks, guys." They nod back and close the door. "Hi," I say. "Can you help? Is that Gemini Pixel?" The big girl tilts her head to the side and frowns. "I wouldn't bother with that lost cause." I glance down at the crying girl. "You know her?" "Only through the treasonous acts of her dad, Leonidas Pixel. Network geniuses are rare, and he's too useful for execution, so she's taking his place in the firing squad." My brows furrow. The Armstrad ambassador mentioned something about her joining the palace round as a scapegoat. She rolls her eyes and heads toward the seat closest to the wall screen. "What are you, then? The sitting duck or the gopher?" I flinch. "Bucking bronco. Do you know what that means? Don't you get Armstrad TV out in the sticks?" I have to pause to understand what she's saying. "If you mean the Harvester region, our dome only broadcasts Oasis Vision." "What's that?" My lips part, and I sweep my gaze down this girl's outfit. She wears black bangles that match her dress, which might indicate that she's an artisan, but there's nothing artistic about her manner. "Do you know Jimeno Montana?" I ask. She leans forward with her elbows resting on her thighs. "Oh, you're talking about the government news channel. Don't you get anything else apart from the official news?" They play documentaries and the occasional relic from the past on Oasis Vision, but I shake my head and stare down at Gemini Pixel. At least now I know why she's lost herself to despair. "What's going to happen to her?" "I don't know." The girl reaches down and yanks Gemini upright. "Sit down and stop sniveling, will you?" "Hey, I don't see you picking her off the floor." After plunking poor Gemini on one of the seats, she reaches for me, and I scoot back across the stone floor and stand. Her outstretched hand moves up. Then I realize she wasn't trying to lift me or anything weird. "Berta Ridgeback. And you are?" I shake her hand and wince at the firm grip. The rough skin on her palm reminds me of Dad's hands. Zia Mays Calico." She sits, leaving a chair between herself and Gemini. "I can't say it's good to meet you." My lips tighten, but I don't comment on her rudeness. She probably isn't pleased to be in this room and was clumsy with her phrasing. "What's a bucking bronco?" "It's a term used in Armstrad TV shows. Most of the ones they broadcast here are competitions where people compete for some kind of prize." She raises a massive shoulder. "A year's supply of smoky water, a pig roast, or a bolt of silk." She turns to me to make sure I'm following. I nod, even though I'm not sure she's answered my question. "To make the shows more exciting, the producers place extra contestants into the show." Berta scratches the side of her face, and I glance away when it sounds like the rasp of a nail against stubble. "They're not supposed to win or anything, but they amuse the audience, while the legitimate contestant focuses on winning. Get it?" "No." She huffs out an exasperated breath, and my insides squirm with the kind of awkwardness I got at school when getting an answer wrong. "All right," she points at Gemini. "You said she's the scapegoat, right?" Yes. At some point during the trial, she's going to die. Gemini makes a choked cry, and my heart flips upside down. I thought you said they announced her father's execution by proxy last week, but now it's going to take place in the trials. All the blood drains from my face, and I'm glad to be sitting because I'm not sure that my legs can hold up my body weight. I can't look at Gemini because it feels like I'm about to be sick. I have no words to describe my horror. Why? I whisper. She's going to die anyway, so why not spice up the trials Armstrong style? I clench my teeth, breathing through my emotions. Whoever sentenced an innocent girl to death is the one who needs a public execution. How can you talk about it so casually? Berta shrugs and turns back to the screen, where a harvester girl talks directly to the camera. Don't ask questions if you don't want to know the answers. Gemini's head remains bowed. Teardrops splatter on her nightgown, and my throat aches with sympathy. If we can start a revolution before her execution date, we might save her from an undeserved death. My lips part to utter words of comfort to the girl, but no sound comes out. I can't give her false hope, and most importantly, I can't speak freely in front of someone who callously agrees with the slaughter of an innocent. Later, I ask, what's the role of a bucking bronco, then? Someone who provides the laughs by throwing a tantrum every time the contestants prank her, she says. Like a raging bull, but scrawnier. The ambassador said you were the underdog. She scowls. That figures. It's not like I have any chance of winning this stupid trial. I chew on the inside of my cheek, biting back the question on my lips. Turning my gaze from Berta, I glance at the screen. Vitalot stands on stage, her expression serene. The camera cuts to Lady Circe, who points at something on the screen of her tablet. I know what you're thinking, Berta barks. What? I turn back to the large girl. Why would a brute like me join a trial when she isn't small or feminine or beautiful? I wasn't. As soon as they announced the trials, my mother wouldn't stop whining at me to apply. She claps her hands to her chest and says in a high voice, Oh, Bertie, you should try out. Oh, Bertie, you're being too hard on yourself. Oh, Bertie, you're perfectly beautiful. Any young gentleman would be lucky to have you as his wife. My gaze drops to my stained apron. Oh. I was sick of her wittering on and spouting crap. She had to see my humiliation broadcasted across the nation before it would sink into her thick skull that I'm not like other girls. You passed the first round in the marquee? I ask. Her eyes narrow. What are you saying? That I'm ugly? No. A genetic male? Her huge hands curl into fists. Stop putting words in my mouth. I twist back to the screen, where Vitalot stands with her arms folded across her chest. Whatever they're saying to her, she's staying cool and fighting back with words. You're the one who brought up the subject. I just want to watch my friend. Berta remains quiet as Vitalot inclines her head and walks off stage with her head high. The camera cuts to Montana, who beams. Irritation surges through my veins. What on earth had they said to each other? I snuck into the concert hall and walked on stage, says Berta. My head whips around. What? Berta shrugs. It earned me a whipping, but Prunella Broadleaf's scathing insults made it worthwhile. And your mother? Devastated, she snorts. Mocked by all her friends, but she won't be forcing me to get married in a hurry. I don't bother to ask what they said to Berta on stage. My own humiliation still stings, and I'm not interested in reliving someone else's. Do you live in the Oasis? In the North Barracks. She hooks a thumb over her shoulder, which I guess indicates the compass direction. My dad is in charge of the aerodrome. Berta tells me that her apprenticeship starts in January, after she turns 16. I press my lips together, trying to process my reaction. She doesn't sound remotely sorry about having been whipped. A tough girl like that could have just stood up to her mother's nagging. Why didn't she just say no? Berta stares at the screen and blows a stray strand of blonde hair out of her face. This is so boring. These girls all look the same. Tuning out her griping, I stare at the screen and wait for Emira and Pharrell to come on stage. The door creaks open, and guards step inside to allow stagehands to bring bowls of beef stew and dumplings. But no matter how much I try to coax Gemini to eat, she jerks her head away and cries. I take a mouthful of the stew, but I can't appreciate its taste. At least in the Harvester region, a person gets punished for their own acts. Things are so different in the Oasis. During the breaks, they show highlights from the different towns of the Harvester region, including footage from last night that makes me look like I was so desperate to sign up for the trials that I tripped over my own feet. Berta slaps her thigh and laughs, and even Gemini glances up at the screen and gives me a sad smile. I stare at the door, wondering when the interviews will ever end. Hours later, Berta works out how to operate the wall screen's volume in time for us to catch Montana thank everyone for watching the Harvester portion of the Princess Trials. There's a short interval where the audience casts their votes, during which footage from Prince Kevon appears on screen. He's sitting at the waterfall, wearing a burgundy military jacket, and his blue-black hair is tied loosely at the nape of his neck, making him look less stuffy. I lean forward and squint, wishing the camera would make a close-up. He thanks all the lovely ladies for their participation in the Princess Trials and wishes the semifinalists luck in the Palace round. Shouldn't Prince Kevon get to choose which of the girls he likes? I turn to Berta. Why would he let other people decide? She folds her arms across her chest. Don't you read the gossip rags? Rags? My mind conjures an image of the shirt I caught on a cactus that I ripped beyond repair. Berta rolls her eyes. Save me from backward yokels. I tilt my head to the side and mirror her folded arms. How am I supposed to know about everything you have in the Oasis if harvesters can't leave the region without a permit? The superior expression melts a little, and she says, Prince Kevon spent a lot of time with Rafaela Van Eyck. She's an actress on one of the most popular shows in Fangloria. I lean forward and nod, eager for her to continue. Footage of girls shoving each other to get to the marquee shows on the wall screen. One hits another with a bucket, splattering milk everywhere, and I wonder if the camera is showing Beauce or one of the other livestock-centered towns. The gossip rags. They're newspapers that report on social events, who was seen on whose arm and wearing what. Berta turns to me to check that I'm following, but I'm struggling to understand why anyone would want to waste time reading something so trivial. Anyway, the king and queen didn't approve of their son associating with a beautiful actress. Why? The rags always implied she had lots of lovers, I suppose, she says with a shrug. I rub my temples. This story's taking so long, I've forgotten why Berta started telling me about the rags. If Prince Kevon had to choose a girl to marry, it would be Rafaela, no question about it. He let his parents organize these trials when he's already in love with someone else? Rafaela competed on Monday. She was the first to win the vote. Did the rags report? Quiet. Berta holds up a palm. They're about to announce the finalists. On the screen, Montana claps his hands together. Welcome back, Your Majesty and His Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for casting your votes. Now, here are the 6 Harvester girls who will move into the palace tomorrow. The camera cuts to the orchestra, where a man in a tuxedo rolls a drum wider than a barrel. In order of popularity, we have Corey Barzona. Footage of the milkmaid from Beauce flashes up on a screen behind Montana, with close-ups of her time on stage. I can't even say she got chosen because she was the first girl interviewed. Corey is in the full bloom of health, with glossy black hair, glowing skin, and a full figure. Next to be chosen is Emera Hull, and I pinch the bridge of my nose. She is undoubtedly beautiful, with her flaxen hair and perfect features, and with some good Oasis food she will be even more stunning than Corey. However, I'm still annoyed with her for hurling accusations at Pharrell in the waiting room. The cartwheel-turning girl is next. Her name is Brunea Pomathera from Morris, where they grow horse apples, mulberries, and keep silkworms. She has burnt orange-colored hair that forms natural waves. I can't remember the other two girls from the coach, but they're Angeline Hereford and Sintra Mukoda, both from Sus. It's the town next to Bose, and they raise pigs. My hands ball into fists, and I hope Pharrell is the final candidate. And last is Vitalot Solar, the girl with the rapier wit, Montana says, as her footage flashes on the screen. My shoulders droop, and I slump into my seat. What on earth happened to Pharrell? Chapter 10. By the time the guards open the door to what I've come to think of as our cell, my eyelids droop, and my head slumps to my chest, then jolts me awake. Their presence washes away all fatigue, and I spring to my feet. Bedtime. One of them beckons with a gloved hand. Where are you taking us? I ask. Let's go. Berta pushes past, knocking me to one side. The guards march us out of the room, down the concert hall stairs, and into a vast underground chamber littered with dozens of the same black vehicles that patrol the Harvester region. One of the men opens the door to a windowless van, revealing nothing but a single bench set within white space. Berta hops inside and sits. She folds her arms and stretches out her legs as though getting into the back of armored vans is a daily occurrence. I climb inside, taking my cue from Berta, and try to relax, but it's hard with Gemini's sobs filling my ears. As the van turns a corner, her trembling body leans to my side, and she flinches whenever I offer comfort. Her misery is a constant reminder of how important it is for me to find those hidden passageways so that the Red Runners can save her life. 10 minutes later, the van stops, the doors open, and we're in a similar space, only smaller, and with fewer vehicles. The guards march us up 6 flights of stairs, down a hallway, and into a sparse room. It's twice the size of mine, with 4 beds, each with white sheets tucked taut over thin mattresses. At the foot of each bed is a small trunk on top of which lie folded clothes. I walk to the bed by the window and peer outside. Tall lampposts illuminate flower-bearing trees we saw on the way to the concert hall. This isn't the palace, I murmur. Berta snorts. Is this yokel humor? Just for that comment, I take the bed by the window, which at least has a decent view. Ha! She unfolds one of the garments at the foot of the bed. It's a long nightgown. At least Pixel won't need to get changed. I lie in bed, trying to fall asleep. The bed is softer than my straw mattress, but there's a metal frame with no give. Berta snores, Gemini sobs, and I can't stop twisting the ring around my finger and wondering how Rice will react to my performance at the audition. As I drift off, my finger pulses, and I jolt awake and decipher the code. It's Rice. My eyes snap open, and I raise my head. Moonlight drifts in through the window, lighting up our room. Berta is still sleeping, and Gemini is silent. I stare down at my finger, wondering if he's close. Congratulations! Are you searching the palace? I gulp and squeeze the ring. We never learned about these devices in the Red Runners. I only know Veil code because it's the system we use for tapping out messages with our fingers. How can I explain to him that they took us somewhere else? Complete your mission soon. You were so strong and beautiful tonight. I am dying to see you again. My eyes flutter shut. I lean against the headrest and sigh. I'm so glad Rice approves of how I dealt with Prunella Broadleaf. Carolina would probably scold me for reacting in the face of provocation, but Rice understands. I slide under the covers and wait for him to say something else. Rice seems to be holding out for the perfect woman. He has to choose me. I yearn to fight by his side during the revolution and rule gracefully beside him when he eventually takes leadership of the new democracy. My thoughts drift to Pharrell, who I expect is furious that Emera ruined her chances for getting through to the next round. If anyone deserved a luxury break, with food and water and rest, it was her. Soon, exhaustion pulls me into a deep, dreamless sleep that keeps me under until the first rays of sun shine on my eyelids. I sit up in bed and glance around the room. Berta lies still, neither snoring nor breathing loudly, and Gemini sleeps. It's the most peaceful I've seen the girl since she arrived in that room last night. I glance at my ring for signs of activity, but when no message arrives, I swing my legs out of bed and look out of the window. Beyond the trees is a long stone building that takes up an entire block. It might be the same one we passed yesterday morning. "Trying to escape?" Berta asks. Why would I want to do that? I turn and lean against the window pane. Berta sits upright. She pulls her long, ash-blonde hair into a braid, which accentuates her strong features. Her eyes have an owlish, unblinking stare. They're set far apart, and a thick nose bridge fills the gap. I can't say that she's unattractive. She isn't, but it's her harsh words and blunt personality that make her unlikable. Your face, last night when I told you about the bucking bronco. You looked like someone holding back a wet fart. I wrinkle my nose. That perfectly describes your feelings about being the underdog. Her face twists into a scowl. Even if Prince Kevon liked you, they'd never allow him to marry a harvester. One corner of my lip twitches. It's the same expression Rice makes when something should make him smile. Berta probably thinks I'm a backward country girl who believes in fairy tale romances. If only she knew. She leans forward. What? Let's just say I'm optimistic about the future. What does that mean? I turn back to the window. You wouldn't be interested. It's just a yokel phrase. She huffs and moves around the room, cursing at the crappy selection of clothes. A loud slam makes me spin around, and I turn to find that she has left. There's a second door, which probably leads to a bathroom. Gemini jolts awake. We lock eyes for a heartbeat, and then her face crumples. My shoulders droop, and I blow out a long, tired breath. With Berta in the other room, I might be able to offer her some hope by sharing my plans, but it might be premature. We're not in the palace, and there's no guarantee that Gemini won't try to barter the information to save herself. Eventually, Berta emerges from the other room, her hair glowing with health. She wears a jumpsuit that's tight around the chest and shoulders. My brows draw together. What's? They're going to make us wear this uniform for the trials. She spreads her arms wide. These pants are flapping around my shins. I glance down at the bottoms of her jumpsuit, which end 5 inches above her ankles. Can you tuck them into your boots? It's not regulation. She walks over to her side of the room and makes her bed. I take the pile of clothes on my trunk and walk into the bathroom. It's 4 times the size of the one we use at home, covered in glossy tiles and divided into 4 shower cubicles. A wide mirror hangs on the wall closest to the door, in front of which sits 4 benches with a Perspex counter. After placing my new outfit on the table, I undress and stand under the shower, which rains a torrent of warm water onto my head. It's warm and more powerful than anything I've ever experienced. I tilt my head toward the spray, letting the water pummel my skin. Once a month on a Sunday, each family gets to visit the public baths, where they can shower or take a swim in over-chlorinated water. This shower makes my Sunday treat feel lame. A heavy fist thumps on the door, and I realize how much time I've spent in the water. Guilt creeps across my skin, combined with the shame at having wasted so much of a valuable resource. I step out of the shower, which turns itself off, and quickly get dressed. When I return to the room, Prunella Broadleaf is standing inside with a pair of assistants. She wears a royal blue two-piece suit consisting of a jacket with similar gold brocade to the one King Arius wore on Oasis Vision. "Good morning, ladies," she says, not looking any of us in the eye. Nobody replies. I glance at Berta, whose scowl makes me wonder if the scathing comments Prunella made to her on stage cut deep. "Your actions have earned yourselves special roles in an interim round of the princess trials." "Isn't this the palace round?" I ask. Her gaze darts to me, and the corners of her lips twitch with distaste. "There'll be an announcement about that later." I wrap my arms around my middle and lower myself onto the spare bed. The jumpsuit is form-fitting and makes me feel like a scarecrow that has lost its stuffing. "What's happening?" "You three will form the comic relief." She recounts something similar to Berta's explanation of Armstrad contests, except her description sounds a little more humiliating. "The producers of the show will put me in situations that will incite my anger. They will enhance Berta's unattractiveness at every opportunity, and Gemini will still die." By the time Prunella stops speaking, even Berta is pale. I'm beginning to despise Armstrad as much as I hate the nobles. I save my animosity for Lady Cersei, who dredged up my background, and for Prunella, who outlines our predicament as though putting two girls through humiliation and one to death is a matter of entertainment. Prunella's gaze sharpens as she turns it to Gemini. "Your father will watch the highlights of the princess trials as part of his punishment. If you do not cooperate, we will broadcast your whipping." Less than 20 minutes later, Prunella's assistants walk us down the stairs to a large dining room. A head table takes center stage on a raised platform with 13 seats. In the main part of the room are 8 round tables. Closest to the stage are 3 tables arranged in a row. The 2 at the front left and right remain unoccupied, as is one at the back of the room. An entourage of assistants, including camera women and yesterday's co-host, stand by the far wall. I pause at the doorway, surveying my surroundings. Every girl wears identical jumpsuits, but it's not difficult to tell who belongs to which echelon. Most of the nobles have blue-black hair, save for one, whose glossy chestnut hair forms gentle waves around her delicate features. They sit elegantly, with their elbows off the table, but don't engage in conversation. Behind them, and to the left, the artisans' hairstyles are more varied, and they chat amiably among themselves. Next are the guardians, who sit stiffly in their seats, but they don't have the same hard-faced expressions as Berta. At the far end of that row are the industrials, who sit with stooped postures and dark circles under their eyes. They look the oldest of the echelons, and remind me of plants that have wilted beyond saving. The harvesters, who sit in the back row, look radiant compared to the girls forced to breathe polluted air. Berta marches to the empty table at the back of the room and sits. Gemini follows. The smaller girl squares her shoulders and curls her fists. I trail after her, wondering if she's trying to look brave because the footage forms part of her father's punishment. Prunella stands on the podium. "Ladies, please settle for a pre-production announcement." "Why aren't we at the palace?" asks the noble girl with the chestnut hair. "There has been a change of plan. 12 girls from all reaches of the Armstrad Republic will join us for an interim round." Berta sucks in a deep breath. Even Gemini leans forward to gape. Angry chatter explodes around the tables as girls protest against the new addition. I turn to Berta. "Interim round? What does this mean?" "This won't be a beauty contest for much longer," she mutters. "Why?" I ask. "There's one thing I didn't tell you about Armstradi contests." Berta pauses, and her lips tighten with annoyance. "They can get extremely violent. You and I should be fine, though. Those Armstradi girls will only go after those with the best chance of winning. Despite my relief, a tiny piece of me bristles at Berta lumping me in the same category as her. I shake off the petty annoyance and ask, why? Berta raises her brows. Do you know how precious their technology is to us? Before I can ask another question, one of the girls with blue-black hair from the noble table shouts, What's happening? I didn't sign up for an Armstradi contest. Neither did I. The sole brown-haired noble stands. She's tall, with a figure as slender as mine, but where I'm awkward, her movements have a flowing, willowy grace. The other girls on her table grumble. I bite down on my lip. If Prunella gives in to their demands to exclude the Armstradi girls, it might mean getting rid of us. Gemini sniffles at my side. Her only chance of survival is if the revolution happens before her public execution. Ladies, Prunella shouts, clapping her palms together. Ladies! The matter is out of my hands. Anyone who objects to the interim round may bow out now and forfeit her space to a suitable young lady in her echelon. Silence spreads around the dining room, and the noble girls sit. Prunella exhales a long breath, and the tenseness in her posture relaxes. After rolling her shoulders, she nods at the co-host from yesterday, who hurries forward with his entourage of camera women, and Prunella's harried expression morphs into an excited smile. The co-host introduces himself as Byron Blake and asks Prunella about the exciting new development to the princess trials. She beams into the camera. With all these charming new contestants, it's time to shake things up. My eyes bulge. The trials haven't even started yet, and she's already adding obstacles to my mission. What can these young ladies expect? Asks Byron Blake. An exciting new trial with an educational twist. Prunella raises a manicured finger. I lean forward, hoping she's talking about a written test, but considering everyone's reaction about the princess trials turning into an Armstrad contest, it's probably going to be dangerous enough to get Gemini killed. When the girls have finished their trials, they'll attend a ball in honor of the Republic of Armstrad. His Excellency Ambassador Pascal will bring 30 of his finest young gentlemen to waltz with our young ladies. My brows draw together. How precious could this Armstradi technology be if they're allowing this ambassador so much influence over the princess trials? Fascinating. Byron rubs his chin. Then what? Then the public will decide who will join Prince Kevon in the palace for another round of the princess trials. My ears perk up. Whatever happens, I've got to make the public like me enough to be one of the 30 who reach the palace round. I hope the cameras broadcast this to Ragosa, because the last thing I want Carolina and Rice to think is that I've failed. Byron gives Prunella a knowing wink. There's one more change that will delight our viewers. Prunella bounces on the balls of her feet. His Excellency has agreed to supply Fangloria's hospitals with a year's supply of medicines in exchange for giving 12 Armstradi beauties the chance to compete for the hand of Prince Kevon. The assistants around the room applaud. Some of them turn to us and raise their palms in a motion encouraging us to do the same. We all ignore her. If there are 30 places at the palace, adding the 12 Armstradi means that 2 or 3 from each echelon will have to go home. It's a massive disappointment, considering everything we've endured to get here. Will our foreign guests join us for the palace round? Asks Byron, with far too much enthusiasm. Would you like to meet them? Prunella replies. He turns to the camera with wide eyes and an exaggerated gasp. Are they here already? They certainly are. Prunella beckons at the camera. Come in, ladies. A door behind us opens, and a statuesque girl with ebony skin and bleached blonde curls walks out. She's wearing the same jumpsuits as us, except she fills hers even better than the nobles. Behind her is a pale blonde with platinum hair, and behind her is a girl with similar skin, but red hair and freckles. "They've brought every color of the rainbow," mutters Berta. She's not joking. The girls represent every possible shade of skin, and 2 of them resemble nobles with their blue-black hair. I chew on the inside of my cheek. They must have prearranged this surprise entry, because it doesn't seem possible to arrange extra outfits and this interim building overnight. I drum my fingers on the table, watching the procession of beauties march down the room. The Armstrad Republic is at the far northwest of the continent, 4,000 miles from Fangloria. Even with the best solar vehicles, it would take them nearly a month to travel to us in the southeast. Behind them walks Lady Circe, wearing her usual black catsuit and a scowl more ferocious than her firearms. Somehow, I don't think she was informed of the new arrangements. I turn around to see if Queen Damascena or Ambassador Pascal will join us, but they are conveniently absent. The cameras follow the Armstradi girls, who form a line at the top of the room and smile winningly for the camera. Afterward, they lower themselves into the seats at the front tables. "Welcome, honored guests," says Prunella with a tight grin. "Ladies, please stand for the young gentleman who has captured our hearts, Prince Kevon of Fangloria." Another set of doors opens, and Garrett walks through, wearing black civilian clothes. His blue-black hair is slicked back, much like how Prince Kevon styled his hair in the clip they showed of him with King Arius. I suck in a sharp breath. Garrett can't be the prince. He's far too annoying. He holds the door open, and another young man walks in. Everything about him is familiar, except he's not the Prince Kevon I saw on Oasis Vision. I have to blink to focus. He has the blue-black hair of a noble and dark eyes, but his features belong to someone else. Sergeant Silver. My stomach drops. Sergeant Silver is Prince Kevon. He's the guard who heard me talk about wanting to be with Rice as he leads the country. He's also the guard who told me that Prince Kevon was a lucky man to have a committed admirer. Prince Kevon pauses at the door and surveys the room. For a moment, our eyes meet, and he raises his brows. I drop my gaze and realize I'm the only person in the room not applauding. As he walks down the side of the room, I clap louder to compensate for my indiscretion. I might be here as entertainment, but I can't get eliminated in this interim round. Bucking bronco or not, I will have to play my part until I reach the palace and start my mission. Garrett trails behind Prince Kevon. From the black holsters camouflaged around his outfit, he's some kind of bodyguard. All that talk about wanting to become a doctor had been horse manure he had dredged up to impress Pharrell. I'm almost glad my friend has returned to Ragosa. At least she's away from the clutches of yet another guard. Prince Kevon stands at the podium and gives a welcoming speech. I can't hear a word of it because my pulse beats like a war drum and muffles everything but the blood roaring through my ears. Of all the underhanded tactics, a laugh forces its way out of my chest. Why am I being such a hypocrite? I came here to destroy the monarchy, not to marry it. By the time I'm through with these people, romance will be the least of their problems.